The prince lay face up in the shallows of the Trident, the river licking at his hair like cold fingers. The rubies had scattered long ago, flung from his breastplate when Robert's hammer had crashed through the enameled dragon. Somewhere in the mad confusion of hooves and screams and splintering lances, the gems had burst outward like drops of frozen blood. Men still clawed at the riverbed for them. Those who lived, but not here. Here the water ran quiet and green and slow. Rhaegar Targaryen could not move his left arm. The right, he found, answered him after a moment, trembling as he forced fingers open and closed. Each breath was shallow fire. He remembered the hoarse bellow as the usurper's hammer swung toward him, remembered the desperate turn of his shield, the failure of steel and strength. He remembered falling, the world going red, then white, then nothing. No, there was only the sky above him, vast and indifferent, clouds drifting like ships before the sun. Am I dead? He wondered. Had the stranger come and gone again, offended by the press of prophecy still clinging to his soul? Something shifted in the reeds at the river's edge. Boots squelched in mud. Water rippled. The shadow that fell across his face was not the stag of Baratheon, nor the direwolf of Stark, nor any sigil he had prepared himself to see in his final moment. The rising sun framed a pale face, a fall of tangled black hair, and dark eyes that had once watched him play the harp in a tower at Summerhall. "Arthur," Rhaegar said, though it came out a dry croak that might have been anyone's name. The same. The sword of the morning knelt in the shallows, water up to his thighs. His white cloak trailed behind him, sodden and stained with river mud and blood. "You are not dead yet, my prince. The gods are stubborn things." "Robert?" Rhaegar coughed, tasted copper. "The battle. Won?" Arthur's mouth twisted. "By him. You broke his charge, but it was not enough. Lord Stark is gathering the Northmen around his banner even now. They look for your body." He glanced downriver, toward the sound of distant voices. "They will not find it." Rhaegar tried to move, failed. "Leave me then. I have lost. Better they take my head and be done. Perhaps Lyanna." "Lyanna Stark is beyond your worrying," Arthur cut in, more sharply than any man had ever spoken to him. "You lost a battle, not a war written in comets and scrolls." His hand slid beneath Rhaegar's shoulders. "Rouse yourself, Prince. It seems the gods have left you to me." Rhaegar almost laughed. It came out as a rattle in his chest. "House Dane against the realm?" "House Dane against the wrong turning of history," Arthur said, "with some small help." Another figure came into view then, sloshing into the shallows, his fine shoes ruined, his soft hands deft even in their haste. His face was powdered, his eyes heavily lidded. He looked as much like a woman as a man, and his voice, when he spoke, was smooth as oiled silk. "I did warn you, sir. That time was not our ally." Varys the eunuch knelt in the water without complaint, pressing a cloth gently to the broken ruin of Rhaegar's breastplate. "The realm believes you dead, your grace. We will not disabuse them." Rhaegar blinked up at him. "Your grace," he repeated, weakly amused. "A dead man's style. A dead man's freedom." Varys's dark eyes flicked toward the bank again. Shouts carried on the wind, the roar of victorious men hunting for treasure and a corpse to crown their rebellion. "We have precious little time before Lord Stark reaches this stretch of river. If the song is not to end here, we must lift the harp from the water." Arthur slid one arm behind Rhaegar's knees, the other behind his shoulders. The movement sent knives of pain through every part of him. The prince bit down on a groan as the world spun, the sky and river and reeds blurring into one another. When his vision cleared, he was in Arthur's arms, his broken breastplate discarded, his tunic soaked red. "You should have died," Rhaegar murmured. "Perhaps," Arthur said, "but we are both too stubborn." "Why?" Rhaegar forced his eyes to focus on Varys. In that pale, powdered face, he saw a spider at the center of a web too intricate for his pain-addled mind to follow. "Why this risk? The rebel has his crown. My father." He swallowed, tasting bitterness sharper than blood. The city is lost. King's Landing is lost, Varys said. The city was lost long before. The realm may yet be saved. He smiled gently, like a scepter comforting a frightened child. You spoke once of a song, my prince, a song of ice and fire. You believed yourself the first note. Rhaegar thought of Lyanna in her tower, of her gray eyes and wild wolf's laughter, of Elia, patient and weary, her hand light on his harp's neck, of Rhaenys with her kittens, of Aegon with his wisps of silver hair. He thought of the old books in the great library at Summerhall, of prophecies that twisted like smoke through the ages. The song does not end with your death, Varys said softly, nor does it begin with you. It will require all its verses, and verses, Prince, are not so easily silenced as men think. Can you keep him hidden? Arthur asked, already trudging toward the bank. Rhaegar's weight no more than a child's for all the strain lining his jaw. From Robert, from Stark, from Tywin Lannister. Varys rose, wringing out his sodden robes. I have hidden worse monsters than a half-broken prince. There are ships yet loyal to the dragon. There are cities across the narrow sea where a man can vanish for a lifetime. Let the world have its corpse and rubies. We shall have something rarer. And my children? Rhaegar's voice broke on the word. Varys' eyes flickered. Your children will live, he said. That much I can promise you. They are not where the realm believes them to be, and if fortune holds, they never will be. He hesitated. Not the way it remembers. The prince tried to ask what that meant, but darkness welled up from the edges of the world, cold and irresistible as the trident's depths. He felt Arthur's arms tighten, heard the eunuch's voice become a thin thread of sound. Sleep, your grace. Songs take time to ripen. We will wake you when the world is ready. Rhaegar Targaryen, who had lived his life in pursuit of a song no one else could hear, let the river pull him under at last. The world thought him dead. For a long time, Rhaegar allowed it to be right. They called the road east of Pentos the Dragon's Spine, though no dragon had flown above it in living memory. Its stones were old Valyrian work, worn smooth by centuries of wheels and hooves, scored with faint ripples where dragon fire had kissed them once. When the wind blew from the south, it carried the salt stink of the narrow sea and the cry of gulls. When it blew from the north, it smelled of the flat grasslands and the camps of Khalasars that sometimes grazed their horses there. Viserys Targaryen despised it. The sun beat down on his bare, shaved head. His fine Pentoshi silk was stained with dust and sweat. The Dothraki rode around him in loose half-circles, their horses snorting, their braids swinging, their laughter always at his expense. He imagined every chuckle was about him, every glance a judgment. Behind him, in a creaking wain with iron-bound wheels, sat his sister. Daenerys clung to the side of the cart as it lurched, knuckles white. She had one hand curled around a small wooden box, the grain worn smooth where she had stroked it in her sleep. Inside the box, wrapped in silks that had once hung in the manse of Illyrio Mopatis, 3 dull, heavy stones knocked together with each movement of the road. She could feel them through the woods sometimes. Faintly warm, faintly alive. Stop that. Viserys' horse drew level with the wain. His face shone with sweat, his violet eyes bright as fever. You clutch them like a child with a toy. They're not yours. Dany let her fingers loosen, just a little. You said they were our legacy, she reminded him. The words were timid, carefully chosen. Long practice had taught her which tones brought the whip and which merely earned disdain. The last of our house, the Magister said. The Magister says what it profits him to say. Viserys' mouth twisted. He is fat and clever. I am thin and cleverer. Remember that, little sister. These eggs are mine. All of it is mine. The Khalasar, the gold, the throne across the sea. Yours only by my sufferance, as befits a beggar queen with no crown. He would have ridden on, satisfied, but the other rider had drawn closer. tall and flat-faced, with narrow eyes and a braid no longer than his ear. Drogo. He had been watching them with the unreadable curiosity of a man studying some new beast he might eat or ride. "The little queen speaks true," Drogo said in rough common, surprising them both. "The old fat ones say the stones wake for her. Not for you." His teeth flashed. "Maybe when she sleeps on them they will bite." Viserys' hands clenched on his reins. "You dare? Leave it." Drogo's voice came from the head of the column, lazy as a big cat's. He did not look back. "The beggar king rattles. He is nothing. His sister is Khaleesi. The Khalasar needs her quiet, not broken." He turned his horse slightly, the bells in his long braid chiming. "Ride, Ghost. The grass does not listen when you shout at it." Viserys' face was the color of curdled milk. He spurred his horse forward away from them, muttering under his breath. Dany watched him go with a quiet relief that tasted of guilt. She had learned to live in the spaces his anger left, to breathe between his rages. When he was not near, the world grew larger. Drogo's horse sidled closer to the wain. "You should not let him touch the stones, Khaleesi," he said in Dothraki, a language that still sat awkwardly on her tongue. "He is not a rider, and they are not his." She looked down at the box, at the place where the grain had been smoothed by her fingers. When she closed her eyes, she could feel the faint heat again, like coals buried deep in damp ash. "They were laid for us," Illyrio had said that night in Pentos, the wine glowing in his cup, the shadows from the lamps long and soft. "Or for you, sweet child, if there is any truth in the old tales. Dragon eggs petrify, yes, but there are stories of those that wake again in the right hands. And if dragons return to the world, who would dare deny your claim?" She had seen something else that night, hidden beneath the Magister's smiles. A man in a hooded cloak, his voice low, his hands scarred from old burns. He had not been of Pentos. His accent was of somewhere further west, and in his eyes she had glimpsed something like awe when he looked at her. "Every ember is a promise," he had murmured, when Illyria's attention turned away. "Sometimes the wind blows one back to the hearth." Now jostled along the dragon's spine, Daenerys Targaryen thought of that man and heard another voice layered beneath his, older and sadder. "We will wake you when the world is ready." The road dipped. The cart lurched. She tightened her grip on the box. "Let him call himself king," she said aloud, to no one in particular. "He cannot steal what the fire has chosen." The Dothraki thought she spoke of Drogo. Perhaps that was safest, for now. At night, beneath the indigo bowl of the sky, when the Khalasar camped, and Dany lay in Drogo's great tent with the smell of horses and smoke around her, she would take the eggs from their wrappings one by one. She would cradle them in her hands and whisper the old words she half remembered from childhood, the ones her brother had mocked as nursery prattle. Sometimes, when the world held its breath and the stars burned like cold blue dragon eyes, the eggs whispered back. The boy went by the name of young Griff, though it sat on him like an ill-tailored cloak. He wore dye in his hair, the blue so dark it was almost black, and stained his eyebrows to match. He bore a false scar down one cheek and practiced a sellsword's rough swagger when he remembered. When he forgot, when the longship rocked him into dreams, he was something else entirely. He stood on a balcony in the Red Keep, the wind off Blackwater Bay tugging at his hair. Below lay the city, teeming and stinking, its alleys coiled like vipers. Behind him the Iron Throne loomed, all jagged steel and shadow. He could feel the weight of it at his back, like a hand between his shoulders pushing him forward. "Aegon?" The voice came from the doorway. His mother, Elia of Dorne, stepped into view, her dark hair caught back with a simple net of gold. She moved with habitual care, as though any sudden motion might wake the pain that lived in her bones. "You should not lean so far. Your grandfather did not build that throne for flying lessons." He turned, grinning. "I would not fall, mother. The dragons would catch me. Not me. And fur. They are gone." Her mouth twisted. The last burned at Summerhall before I was born. Not the stone ones, he said patiently. He pointed toward the narrow window that looked out onto a different vista, one of ash-choked hills and blackened towers half swallowed by the sea. In his dream, the window was always there, though it did not exist in the waking world. The ones beneath, they speak when I sleep. They know my name. Elias' eyes darkened. What name, Niño? Aegon of House Targaryen, he recited, proud. Sixth of his name. King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and protector of the realm. Main. The words felt right in his mouth. They had been placed there by another voice, older and low, that came to him sometimes through the cracks of his dreams. Not his father's, though he longed for that more than anything, but one that knew of him, that had weighed him and found him necessary. You will not die today, little dragon. That voice had said once when fire and screams had filled his dreams so loudly he had woken with his sheets soaked in sweat. They have given the realm a corpse and called it you. They cannot imagine how many bodies must be buried before the song is sung. Sometimes, when he woke in the cramped cabin of the shy maid with its smell of tar and river water, Aegon could still feel the press of a jeweled hand on his brow. He would lie there a while, listening to the creak of wood and the distant murmur of Griff and Halden half arguing over his lessons, and try to remember the precise cadence of that unseen king. And no, not Aemon, not Maekar. Something close to those. The names blurred in his mind like rivers meeting. On deck, the real Griff waited, arms folded across a barrel-like chest. His coarse red hair and scarred face gave him the look of a hard-used sellsword, but his eyes were sharp as any maester's. Beside him, the half-maester Halden pages paced, muttering under his breath as he leafed through a salt-stained book. "You're late," Griff said as Aegon clambered up from below. Again, if a king keeps his captains waiting, he soon has fewer captains. "I dreamed," Aegon said, breathless. "Of the throne again, of Mother." Griff's jaw tightened, just for an instant. Dreams will not keep you on a saddle or a ship when the wind shifts. Sword practice first, then letters, then philosophy, if you insist on being difficult. You can tell me of your dreams when we row. "The dreams matter," Aegon insisted. "The dragons speak." "Dragons are dead," Griff snapped. "And if they are not, they are far beyond your reach, boy. The only beasts you must master now are men and horses and yourself." The river slapped the hull. Overhead, gulls wheeled and cried. Somewhere far away, beyond the horizon and a world of storms, lay the city of his dreams and a throne forged for men who burned their enemies alive. "I will master them," Aegon said quietly. "All of them. The seat, the city, the dragons if they wake." He looked east, though he did not know why. "And I will not be alone." Griff followed his gaze, expression unreadable. "No," he murmured. "No, you will not." In his cabin that night, by the flickering light of a single lamp, Griff took a folded scrap of parchment from beneath a false board and read it again. The ink was faded, the hand elegant and strong. "There will be 3, the letter had said. 3 heads, as the old songs insist. The first will bear the burden and break beneath it. The second will carry the fire and refuse to be consumed. The third will come from ice and shadow, and he will not know his own name. We are past the point of choosing if there will be a song, Lord Varys. We may still choose who will sing it." Griff refolded the parchment with careful fingers. When he closed his eyes, he saw a harp sinking into dark water, rubies spinning, a white cloak trailing like a banner in the current. "The world thinks you dead," he murmured, to the memory of a prince on a riverbank. "Yet here we are, sailing toward the ruin you tried to avert." When he slept, John Connington dreamed of fire and a voice telling him he had been forgiven nothing, but been given one more chance all the same. In the far north, at the edge of the world men thought they knew, the wind howled around a crumbling tower. Snow had climbed nearly to the 2nd story, drift upon drift piled against the weather-eaten stone. The hearth inside had long since gone cold. The ravens had flown. Even the ghosts seemed to have abandoned the knucklebone of ruin that men once called the Night Fort. Only one figure remained. The old man sat wrapped in furs, his long hair white as milk glass. The staff across his knees was carved with fading runes. His blind eyes stared into a distance that had nothing to do with the tumbling sky or the snow-choked forest. "Maester, Dort." The boy's voice echoed off empty stone. "The fire's gone to coals. You should move back from the window." "It's not the window I'm watching, Samwell," said the old man. "It's the years." Sam Tarley shuffled closer, the cold making his teeth chatter. He had been many things in his short life. First son of a lord, disappointment, deserter, sworn brother of the Night's Watch, but nursemaid to a half-frozen Targaryen prince had never crossed his imagination. "You'll freeze," he protested. "I was born in Dragonstone," said Maester Aemon not unkindly. "I have lived through more winters than you have years. I have given my sight to books and my blood to duty. The cold is the last honest thing left me." "No." Sam glanced warily at the darkness beyond the broken window. Once, the Night Fort had been the first and greatest of the Watch's castles, seat of their lord commanders, home to thousands. Now it crouched upon the wall like a collapsed lung. Somewhere below, the black gate still waited with its weeping face of ice, but no one went down there if they could help it. "The ravens came again," Sam said, eager to focus on anything but the emptiness. "From Castle Black and Eastwatch both. They say Lord Snow has taken the wildlings through the wall. That Stannis Baratheon has made him Lord Commander, in all but name." "Tea. Lord Snow," Aemon repeated, tasting it. "The boy grows faster than men think, faster than is safe." He drew a slow breath. "What did our brothers write of the others?" Sam swallowed. "Nothing new, Maester. They burn their dead now. They say the dragon glass from the fist worked, but there is not enough. Not for a war. They ask." His voice faltered. "They ask after dragons. Again. They always ask after dragons," Aemon murmured. "Men who have never seen one think them a cure for all ills. Fire against ice, teeth against shadow." His blind eyes turned toward the south, toward lands he had not seen in nearly a century. "What else?" Sam hesitated. The other letters lay heavier in his pocket than any lead. "We had word from Old Town. Weeks passed. Then the sky turned last night. There was a light, like a river of fire, running north to south. The brothers at the Shadow Tower swore the aurora formed shapes. One said he saw a crown of rubies. Another, he looked down, embarrassed. Another claimed he saw a woman with hair like silver, holding a burning child." Aemon's fingers tightened on his staff. "And the Citadel? They argue about comets and portents," Sam admitted. "Archmaester Marwyn sent a separate letter to Castle Black, though. He says the glass candles are burning again. He says..." He swallowed. "He says dragons alive." The old man exhaled, hissed slow. "So the world turns where it must, for all our scratching of ink on parchment." He lifted his blind face, as though he could see the sky through snow and stone. "When I chose my chains and left Dragonstone, I told myself it was to prevent a war. To remove a piece from the board that might tempt mad kings to burn half the world in pursuit of glory." He laughed, softly and without mirth. "Yet here we are, Samwell. Aemon Targaryen, elder brother once to Aegon V, blind and cold in a ruin at the end of the world, while dragon's blood spills and wakes and returns in a dozen places. I can no longer walk." Sam shifted from foot to foot. You think the rumors are true? About the girl across the sea? And the boy with the golden company? Some say he's only a pretender set up by Sellswords." "No. Some say I was only ever a maester," Aemon said. "And yet the blood in my veins once made kings tremble. Names are a thin armor against what is written in the bones." He sighed. "Viserys, Daenerys, Aegon, Rhaenys, a lineage scattered by knives and lies, and yet it grows again in the cracks. Sam's eyes went wide. You know their names. I know more than that. Aemon's fingers traced the runes on his staff. I know that a prince who died on a riverbank did not wholly die. I know that a princess screamed in a tower in Dorne and was not entirely silenced. I know that a boy raised as a bastard in Winterfell dreams of places no bastard should know. Sam's heart hammered. Jon? The world thought I was mad when I refused the throne, Aemon went on, as though he had not heard. They sent me to the wall to rot with heroes and cowards. Perhaps I was mad. Perhaps I saw too much of what kingship did to my kin. But the blood in me did not end with my choice. It only thinned, trickled into places no one was looking. He turned his blind eyes towards Sam. If every Targaryen who was meant to shape history had lived, the world would have burned long before your birth. But the gods are capricious. They snuff some candles and shield others from wind. I begin to suspect they merely delayed the fire. Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it a faint sound that might have been the crackle of distant lightning. Or wings. What should we do? Sam whispered. What we have always done, Aemon Targaryen said, and the king he might have been flickered through his old bones, sharp and sudden. Send word. Watch the skies. And pray, Samwell Tarly, that when dragon meets winter, what is left standing will still resemble a world. In King's Landing, the bells of the great sept of Baelor rang for a coronation. The city stank of horse and sweat and spilled wine. Banners in crimson and gold hung from the towers of the Red Keep, their lion sigils snarling above streets choked with people. The small folk sweated in their rags. The high lords sweated in their silk and steel. Above them all, the sky arched in an unbroken blue, showing no hint of the storms gathering just beyond sight. Cersei Lannister stood by a narrow window and watched the procession snake through the city. Tommen looked small on his white horse, his crown slightly askew, his plump hand raised in a hesitant wave. The crowd roared anyway. They roared for any king who was not one they had just watched die. Joffrey's face still hung in her mind's eye, purple and contorted, his eyes bulging as he clawed at his throat. Her boy. Her golden boy. She gripped the stone so hard her knuckles paled. Somewhere behind her, Pycelle droned a blessing. The Tyrell rose was everywhere these days. On banners, on gowns, on the simpering faces of Marjorie and her kin. A shadow of green and petals coiling itself around her remaining son. Your Grace? The voice at her shoulder was careful, not quite obsequious. Lord Varys folded his hands in his voluminous sleeves, his expression as blandly sympathetic as ever. The people are pleased. The people are fickle, Cersei snapped without turning. They cheered my first son as well. Now they whisper that he was a monster. Wolves and vipers, Varys, all of them. Indeed, the eunuch murmured. Yet wolves and vipers are useful, correctly herded. She half turned to study him. You want something. You always do. What letter rides in your sleeve, Spider? What tidings from your whisperers? Varys lowered his gaze modestly. Merely confirmations, Your Grace. Rumors made flesh. The Dragon Queen marches in Slaver's Bay. It is true. She has taken Marine and freed its slaves. She has dragons, 3 of them, if the tales are not exaggerated. There is also news from the disputed lands. A certain company of sellswords has broken its contract and sailed west. Cersei's lip curled. Sellswords are dogs. They go where the meat is. These dogs march behind a dragon banner. Varys lifted his eyes. There was nothing in them but mild concern. And a young man with violet eyes who bears a striking resemblance to portraits in the Hall of the Kings. They call him Aegon. Ice slid beneath Cersei's breastbone. A pretender. Perhaps. Varys inclined his head. The world has seen many false dragons. Yet some of my little birds whisper that he was saved from the sack of the city as an infant. That he was smuggled out in the arms of one of your father's own gold cloaks. Swapped with another babe and raised in exile to reclaim his birthright. Mao. Duh. My father would never. Your father did what he deemed necessary, Varys said gently. For the realm as he saw it, he ended a war with a sack and a crown. Whether he saved a prince along the way, or merely ensured that a certain story could be told later, that is between Lord Tywin and his gods. He let the words sit for a moment, like poison in sweet wine. There is also this, your grace. On the wall, an old man has died. Nah. Cersei bristled. What care I for some frozen crow? This crow was once a dragon. Varys's gaze went distant, as if listening to a far echo. Aemon Targaryen called the Dragon Knight's brother a lifetime ago. He went to the wall to remove himself from the game. Even from there he watched. His passing will be noted by more than black-cloaked men. She laughed brittle. Let them note. If they all come, they will burn together. His eyes slid back to her. If they all come, your grace, the realm will see what it has not seen in centuries. Targaryens against Targaryens. Siblings, cousins, bastards, all vying for a chair of knives. Dragons in the sky and strangers in the snow. The kind of alchemy that turns kingdoms to ash. His hands folded more tightly in his sleeves. A queen who plans for that storm rather than pretending the sky is clear might yet keep her crown when the dragons roost. Cersei stared at him, hatred and fear and a wild, giddy excitement roiling together. The thought of them, silver-haired, purple-eyed ghosts of an age her father had ended, returning to take what was hers, sent a hot shiver through her veins. She imagined their corpses at her feet, their famous blood soaking into the stones of the throne room. Let them come, she said, and her reflection in the window grinned back like a skull. I am the storm. Varys bowed deeply, his bald head nearly touching the floor. When he straightened, something sharp moved behind his placid gaze. In the dark of his hidden chambers later, he unrolled a final scrap of parchment. The ink was new, the hand shakier now. Aemon's writing, sent from the night fort before his last ravens flew. It is nearly time, the old man had written. They gather like crows at a field of fallen men. Do as you must. Forgive me for my part in this. I saw too late that in stepping aside, I merely left the board to those more ruthless. The realm deserves better players. Varys held the parchment over a candle flame until the edges curled black. So do they, old man, he murmured. So do they. When he slept that night, Varys dreamed of a river and a hand reaching toward him from the depths, pale and scarred from old fire. Jon Snow woke with the taste of ash in his mouth. He lay in a hard straw bed in a narrow cell in Castle Black, the rough stone chill against his back. His breath misted in the air. Outside, he could hear the crunch of boots on snow, the barked orders of men mustering on the yard. The world was as it had always been, cold, gray, unforgiving. Yet the dream clung to him. He had stood in a great hall of black stone, its walls carved with dragons that seemed to move when he was not looking. A storm raged outside, lightning splintering the sky. In the center of the hall rose a throne like a mountain of swords. Men lay dead at its base, their faces obscured by silver hair. Their fingers still curled around broken hilts. Jon, a woman he had never seen, knelt among the bodies, her hands slick with blood. Her eyes were gray, the color of winter's sky, and her hair dark as a raven's wing. My son. She pressed a bundle into his arms. It was light as snow and heavy as stone all at once. When he looked down, a babe looked back at him, its eyes an impossible shade of violet, its hair already glinting silver in the stormlight. What is his name? Jon asked, though his voice was not his own. He has many, the woman said. Behind her, a man stepped from the shadows, tall, with hair like molten metal and eyes that mirrored the child's. A harp was slung across his back, strings snapped. Blood stained his breastplate where a sigil of three-headed red dragon had once been. The man's gaze was full of sorrow. He is Aegon. He is Jon. He is the prince that was promised. He is the last hope and not nearly enough. He looked past Jon towards something in the darkness. He is my son, as you are." "I don't understand," Jon said, as he so often did in waking life. "You will," the man promised. "When the river meets the sea, when the wall meets the sky, when every Targaryen who should have burned has instead been banked like a coal, it will not be one of us, but all or none." Then the swords around them burst into flame, white and blue and wild, and Jon had woken with his heart pounding, his hand reaching for a sword that was not there. He sat up now, breathing hard, running fingers through his sweat-damp hair. Ghost lifted his head from the foot of the bed, red eyes gleaming in the gloom. The direwolf whined low in his throat, sensing the unease. "I know," Jon muttered. "I know. They're only dreams. Only dreams. Only ravens from castles long abandoned. Only old men with dragon blood dying in their sleep. Only kings in the south poisoning one another while the real war still waited in the cold." He drew his cloak around his shoulders and rose. The new day would need a steward, a negotiator, a translator between free folk and brothers who had only ever called them enemies. Stannis Baratheon waited for a report. The wildlings waited beyond the wall. The dead waited beyond them all. Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell, did not yet know that his name sat atop a spindle of prophecies as old as Valyria. He did not know that rivers and cities and dragons and queens were all turning, slowly, toward him. He only knew that the world was changing too fast for any one boy's comfort. In a ruined tower at the end of the wall, a trueborn Targaryen died with his brother's name on his lips. In the east, a young woman with silver hair wrapped herself around a dragon egg and dreamed of fire. On the ship that carried him toward destiny, a boy called young Griff practiced his letters and wondered why the word home made his throat ache. In Pentos, in a house with red doors that had once sheltered Targaryen exiles, a man whose hair had gone almost entirely white sat by a shuttered window and plucked at a silver harp with scarred fingers. The song he coaxed from the strings was not the one he had chased in youth. It was rougher now, and sadder, its melody wary and winding. Outside, the sky over the free cities flickered with strange lights, green and purple and ghostly red. "They will all come," Rhaegar Targaryen murmured to the empty room. "Every child the gods spared, every ghost the realm forgot. They will come, and the world will ask them to be one thing." He touched the strings again, weaving a second voice into the first, and a third after it, until the little room seemed too small to contain the sound. "We were never meant to be only one thing," he said. "We were meant to be a chord." The first of them to set foot on Westerosi soil again was Daenerys. The storm that shattered the fleet in Slaver's Bay had not touched her. When she finally turned her dragons westward, leaving Meereen behind in a haze of smoke and half-unfinished promises, the sea seemed to bow beneath their passing. Drogon's wings beat thunder onto the waves. Rhaegal and Viserion screamed their wild joy at the open sky. Behind them, in galleys crammed with unsullied and freedmen and hopeful fanatics, her new subjects sang a song they had made for her, in tongues she had only begun to learn. Mother, they called her. Misa, breaker of chains. They knew nothing of Westerosi prophecies. They knew only a woman who had burned their masters and given them a different kind of collar. She stood at the prow of the lead ship, wind whipping her hair, salt spray cold against her face. Drogon wheeled above, a shadow against the pale disk of the sun. "It was never meant to be like this," she said aloud, though only the waves heard. "I was meant to cross with my brother at the head of a khalasar, or not at all. That is what they told us. Prophecies are not roads," a voice said behind her. She turned, hand already half raised in instinctive call to fire. The man who stood just beyond the mast was no one her guards would have allowed aboard. His hair was silver gold, longer than hers, threaded with a few strands of white. His face was thinner than the portraits she had seen in Illyria's manse, the jaw more angular, the eyes shadowed. He wore plain leather, no crown, no sword. Only the harp slung across his back gleamed like remembered sunlight. For a heartbeat, her world narrowed to the three-headed dragon on his breast. drawn in faint lines of scar tissue where once there had been enamel and metal. "You are dead," she said as calmly as she could. "I was," Rhaegar Targaryen agreed. "Then I wasn't. It has been the great inconvenience of my life." The deck rolled beneath her feet. For a dizzy moment she thought she might be sick. "If this is another of your jests, Jorah." "This is no jest, Khaleesi," Sir Jorah Mormont said, appearing at her elbow, his face ashen beneath his beard. "I saw Prince Rhaegar on the Trident, or thought I did. You fell, my prince. I saw the hammer strike." "And I saw a river," Rhaegar said. "But neither of us saw the end. Men like endings. They make them neat. The truth of it is uglier." He inclined his head to Daenerys. "You have your mother's eyes and Elya's stubborn jaw. A terrifying combination in any person, let alone a queen." She swallowed. "I am not a queen yet." "Not in the South," he agreed. "Yet in the East, they call you mother and break chains for you. Titles are wind. Deeds are stone." He took a few steps closer, bracing himself easily against the sway of the ship. The men nearby pretended to busy themselves with ropes and oars, but Daenerys felt their eyes. Above, Drogon's shadow circled tighter. "Who saved you?" she demanded. "Why hide? Why leave us wandering from city to city, begging for roofs and bread, while you—" Elia insisted, he said quietly. The name cut through her anger like a blade. "She was always the wiser of us. She saw that if I lived openly, the war would never end. That Robert would hunt us to the ends of the earth, and more of our kin and friends would die." He looked away, toward the west, where only blue hazed the horizon. "We made a choice. A cowardly one, perhaps. Varys spirited me away through one of his hidden tunnels. Arthur took my place in the reeds. Elia," his jaw clenched. Elia bled for the lie. Daenerys frowned. "They say Elia died in the sack, that her children were—" "They showed the realm 2 charred bodies and an unrecognizable woman," Rhaegar said. "The mountains smashed the skull of a dying babe. They wrapped a nameless girl in my sister's torn gown. It made a good story, a better one than the truth. But Aegon—" "Lives," Rhaegar said. "As does Rhaenys. They were carried out of the city the night before the Lannisters opened the gates. My children have grown far from my shadow. Aegon sails this very sea now, if my last letters were true. Rhaenys," he smiled faintly. "Rhaenys has never once sailed where anyone told her to. It was too much. Too fast. The world she had built inside herself, brick by brick on the foundation of Viserys' rages and Illyria's promises, cracked. You let him call himself the last dragon," she whispered. "You listened while he screamed and hit and raged, all for a throne he did not even know you had abandoned. You left us in that house with the red door, then took even that from us. Did you ever think of us at all, hiding wherever it suits you?" Meow. He took the blow quietly. "Every day," he said. "Every song. Every chess piece shuffled on Varys' board. I thought that if I lived, I could spare you the gaze of men like Robert and Tywin. I thought that if I waited, the world might ripen into something that would not burn at our touch." His eyes met hers. "I was wrong. I do not ask your forgiveness. I ask only this: do not waste my mistake." Wind snapped the sails. The ship creaked. Dany realized she had balled her hands into fists. "There are 3 dragons," she said. His gaze flicked upward, to where Drogon hissed at the sky. "At least," he agreed. 3 here, perhaps more elsewhere of other kinds. 3 children of my blood now cross this sea with valid claims and wounded hearts. A 4th walks the wall, though he does not yet know his own face. If we fall upon Westeros like wolves, each with our own pack, we will finish what our house began at Summerhall. There will be nothing left but ash. Do you want a kingdom, Daenerys, or a pyre?" "I want what is mine," she said fiercely. "The throne they stole. The home they took. The world they broke. No, their world broke long before ours did." Rhaegar said. But yes, they stole, they killed, they lied, and we have given them long years to grow comfortable in those lies. He touched the rail, his fingers tracing gnarled grooves in the ancient wood. We cannot undo what was done to us. We can decide what we become standing on top of it. Daenerys searched his face. He was not the ghost she had expected. Not the shining prince of Viserys stories, all silver hair and righteous wrath. He was older, wearier, the shadow of a harp string always at his wrist. There was madness in his eyes, perhaps. Any Targaryen who had spent years in hiding, stewing in prophecy, would have some, but there was something else too. Regret. Why come to me? She demanded. Why not to Aegon? I have gone to him also, Rhaegar said. My ravens have, my letters, my spies. He was raised for a throne and believes the song is his alone to sing. He will try to cut history down to a single melody. Your brother, his mouth twitched. Your other brother, Jon. Die. He will run from all of it as long as he can, then break himself trying to save people who think him a monster. The one thing I did not teach any of you was how to share. Nay, Dany snorted despite herself. You speak as though the gods are playing savas with us. If they are, they play badly, he said. I have read their moves. They scatter us, then seed our names into every corner of the world. We are too many fires now for one man's bucket to douse. Robert tried with steel. Ned Stark tried with honor. Tywin tried with gold. Cersei will try with wildfire. None of them will succeed alone. Why should we? He held out his hand, palm up, empty. Come to Westeros as more than a conqueror and less than a saint, he said. Come as one head of 3, or 4, or however many you can bear to sit beside you without tearing out their throats. If every Targaryen who was meant to matter lives, the only way the realm survives is if we let it be ruled by more than one storm. Daenerys looked at his hand. She thought of the freedmen on the ships behind, sleeping with faith in her justice. Of the unsullied, silent, and obedient, waiting for orders in a tongue foreign to these waters. Of Viserys screaming about crowns while drooling Dothraki laughed. Of the house with the red door. Of the throne of blades she had seen only in dreams, looming like a mountain of broken promises. No more chains, she said. Not mine, not theirs, not history's. She did not take his hand. She turned toward the sea instead, eyes fixed on the line where sky kissed water. When we land, she said, you will tell me everything. About Aegon, about Rhaenys, about Jon Snow, if that is truly his name, about what you did and why. Then we will decide what song we sing. As you command, your grace, Rhaegar said, and there was a crooked smile in his voice. Behind them, far on the eastern horizon, another ship's sail caught the light, a pale strip bearing the Golden Company's black and gold. Closer still, unseen beneath the waves, currents collided and twisted, old cold waters meeting warmer tides. Above the clouds, higher even than dragons flew, something vast and patient watched the lines draw together and wondered, not for the first time in an age, if it had misjudged mankind. The second Targaryen invasion caught Westeros unprepared, not because it was unexpected, but because it was too complicated. In the old stories, Aegon the Conqueror had come with his 2 sister wives and 3 dragons. 7 kingdoms had bent or burned. The line was clean, the tale simple. Conquest, surrender, realm. This time the bards would struggle. Aegon landed first on the Blackwater's mouth, with the Golden Company at his back and Rhaenys at his side, her blade bare. They took Griffin's Roost in a day, Storm's End in a week, and the hearts of every discontented lordling in the Stormlands almost at once. A handsome young prince with a famous name and an army of hard men who did not rape or pillage was a tempting thing in a world soured by Lannister rule. Daenerys came shortly after, making landfall on Dragonstone as her ancestor had. The sight of dragons wheeling against the sky above the old Targaryen seat broke what little composure the capital had left. Fleets rode out with offers and threats. Ravens flew in every direction, their messages contradictory and frantic. Rhaegar did not land at all. Not at first. He slipped ashore in the Fingers and rode north with a handful of men who knew how to be invisible. If the gods had spared his life long beyond its natural chapter, he would at least do them the courtesy of not announcing himself with trumpets. Jon Snow did not come south. Not yet. He had his own war. In the haunted forests beyond the Wall, the dead walked. Blue eyes glowed in the dark. The first clashes had already been fought and lost and fought again. Wildlings and Black Brothers died side by side, their blood freezing where it fell. Melisandre Vashai, standing on the wall, watched her flames and whispered of a prince and a promised sword. Which prince? Davos Seaworth asked her once, when the orange light painted half her face in gold and left the other in shadow. The one who lives, she said simply. If the gods ever knew his name, they have forgotten it. In Winterfell's Godswood, Sansa Stark knelt before a heart tree that had seen more kingship than any throne, and begged whichever gods would listen that her scattered family might find their way home. Any home at all, before the world cracked fully. In Sunspear, Doran Martell smoothed a map where dragon banners sprouted like thorns, and thought of his sister Elia, of the children she had borne to a man who chased songs more than kindness. He sent secret letters of his own, not to dragons but to wolves and roses and spears. The realm had survived one Targaryen restoration, only to be faced now with something stranger. A Targaryen proliferation. 2 claimants in the south, another in the north, a ghost in the Fingers. 4 branches of a house that had once burned so hot it had almost consumed itself. 4 souls bound by blood and old fire, carrying into a frightened land the question none of them entirely knew how to answer. Whose story rules? They met at last on the Field of Crows, halfway between King's Landing and the King's Road. It had not been chosen for its name. Names came after battles like Carrion. The lords who insisted on the parley had wanted somewhere neutral, somewhere flat and open, where dragons could land and swords could be watched. The gods, who enjoyed their jests, offered them a patch of blasted earth where hundreds of crows had once feasted on men and blackened wildlings alike. Daenerys came on Drogon, Rhaegal and Viserion, flanking like twin knives. Their shadows swallowed the field long before their bodies did. She wore no crown, only simple leathers and a cloak lined with white fur against the Westerosi chill. The only jewelry on her was the 3-headed dragon at her throat, wrought in old Valyrian steel. Aegon arrived on horseback with his sister and his captains. Griff rode at his shoulder, his false scars forgotten now that his true prince's face could be seen. Rhaenys wore leather and mail, her dark hair cropped short, a Dornish spear across her back. They looked like figures stepped from a mural in the Hall of Kings, brought to life by some vengeful god. Rhaegar stood between them already, waiting, as though the years had been a pause between verses. He had no retinue, no banners, only the harp on his back and a plain sword at his hip. Jon Snow came last, wearing the black of the Watch and the white cloak of a Lord Commander he had not wanted. He did not ride a dragon. He rode a shaggy northern horse, with Ghost padding silent beside. The men with him were a strange mix, brothers in black, wildlings with bone charms in their hair, and a handful of grim Southron knights bearing a flaming heart on their chests. When he saw the dragons, his heart clenched. Some part of him, old and buried and not his, answered their roar with a wordless ache. Rhaegar watched them all approach, a small smile at the corner of his mouth, like a man finally watching players take their marks on a stage he had built in his head decades ago. "You took your time," he said. When Daenerys dismounted and Aegon swung from his saddle and Jon drew rein. "Some of us had wars to fight," Jon said dryly. "Some of us are still fighting them," Daenerys added. "Some of us," Aegon said, "have been fighting them since before we were born." They looked at one another then. The bastard of Winterfell with his snow-pale skin and dark curls. The breaker of chains with the hardest line of Essos still in her shoulders. The boy who had been told each day of his life that a throne was his birthright. 3 faces, 3 sets of eyes, all carrying echoes of the man between them. "Cousins," Rhaegar said. "Daughter, sons, how lovely that we can make the maesters' heads ache this way." "No one told me," Jon said very quietly. "All this time, no one. Not my father, not anyone. No one told any of us everything," Daenerys said. "We all inherited pieces. You had Winterfell and honor. Aegon had teachers and secret histories. I had Viserys and his lies." She glanced at Rhaegar, and her mouth hardened. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a man with a harp decided he knew best. Aegon's jaw was clenched so tight a muscle jumped. "You wrote that I was the prince that was promised," he said to his father. "Marched me across half the world with sellswords whose loyalty runs on gold. If there are 3 heads to this dragon, why did you crown me in ink and not them?" "No." Rhaegar's gaze moved from one to the other, taking in their fury, their grief, their brittle pride. "Because I was wrong," he said simply. "Because I mistook the chorus for a solo. Because I could not imagine a world in which a story did not need a single hero. I had been raised on tales of Aegon the First, not on songs where 3 voices share the melody." Jon let out a breath that misted in the cold air. "And now? And now the wall melts," Rhaegar said. "And dead things walk. And queens burn cities across the sea to free men who were never ours. And boys with dragon dreams sail under banners older than the realm. And an old man died in a ruin with my name on his lips, whispering for me to do better. He spread his hands. There is no rightful king anymore. There are only choices. You expect us to trust one another? Aegon demanded. To sit in council while Cersei Lannister plots and the Night King marches? Trust. Rhaegar laughed, brief and sharp. No, .ec. I expect you to mistrust one another in every word I say. I expect you to suspect poison in every cup and daggers in every shadow. I expect you to weigh each other's sins like maesters with a set of scales. Trust is for the quiet times. We have no quiet left. What we may yet have is necessity. Mencha. Daenerys looked from Jon to Aegon to Rhaegar. The wind picked up, whipping her hair across her face. Drogon shifted, snorting smoke, eyes fixed on the white wolf at the Northman's heels. What does necessity look like? She asked. It looks like this, said a new voice. They turned. From the south rode a small company bearing banners half hidden by snow. At their head, wrapped in furs, sat a woman whose hair had once been as dark as Sansa Stark's, whose eyes had once been as full of fear as any child's. Cersei Lannister's beauty had hardened. The years and losses had carved lines around her mouth and eyes, turned her gaze to flint. She rode beneath the lion banner as if it were the only thing holding up the sky. Behind her came Davos Seaworth, grim and resigned, and Brienne of Tarth with ice in her gaze, and Olenna Tyrell's granddaughter with her rose still pinned at her throat. Behind them, banners of wolf and trout and kraken and sun and spear and flayed man and more besides. What is this? Aegon's hand went to his sword. An annoyance, Cersei said. And your only hope? Put your toys away, boy. If I wanted you dead, I would have brought wildfire instead of Tyrells. She dismounted with practiced grace, ignoring the dragons entirely. I have spent my life despising your house, she said to Rhaegar. Your madness murdered my firstborn. Your legacies haunt my bed. Your blood made the realm I bled for a joke. Her eyes flicked to Daenerys, to Aegon, to Jon. I have called you monsters, all of you, in my heart and aloud. And now, Daenerys asked, and now I see dead things on the march in my dreams. Cersei's voice did not tremble. I see a sky torn by dragons and a wall of ice breaking like glass. I see my grandchildren frozen on thrones that crack beneath them. Whatever else you are, Targaryens, you are also fire. I hate you. I will never stop hating you. but I have no desire to see my house end as food for corpses, while you squabble over who sits where." She stepped closer, until she stood in the shadow of Drogon's wing. The dragon hissed, smoke curling from his nostrils. Cersei stared up at him, unflinching. "Choose," she said. "Slit each other's throats now and give the dead an easier meal, or find some way, gods help us all, to share." Margaery Tyrell smiled thinly. "We brought parchments," she said, "and maesters, and wine. If we must forge something new, we might as well be comfortable." Jon looked at Daenerys. She looked at Aegon. The wind moaned over the field. Ghosts' fur bristled. The dragons shifted. Crows circled patiently overhead, waiting to see what kind of feast this would be. In the end, it was Jon who moved first. He swung down from his horse, boots crunching in the thin crust of snow. He did not draw Longclaw. He did not reach for any crown. "I don't want it," he said. "Any of it. I didn't ask to be your son or your cousin or your promised prince. I asked to guard a wall and failed. But I've seen what's coming. I've killed it. It keeps standing back up. I don't care whose arse warms the throne if there's no one left alive to sit on it." He turned toward Daenerys. "You want to break chains? Good. Help me break the only one that matters now. The one winter is wrapping around all of us." "Nay. He turned to Aegon. "You want to rule? Good. Start by pledging your men to the living. You want the Stormlands? The Crownlands? Argue about it with quills, not swords, when the worst is over." He finally looked to Rhaegar. "You wanted a song. Here's your chorus. Either we sing in tune long enough to drown out the dead, or we let them write the final verse." Silence stretched. Then Daenerys stepped forward. "I will fly north," she said, "with my dragons, with as many unsullied as the ships can bear, with whatever madness and mercy I have left." "Nay." Aegon's lips thinned. He looked at Griff, at Rhaenys, at the men who had followed him across the world. "The Golden Company has never broken a contract," he said softly. "They have broken kings. They have broken oaths. Never their word." He straightened. "I am their word now. We march north." Cersei's laugh was low and bitter. "Look at that," she said to no one and everyone. "History bends after all. Very well. King in the North, Dragon Queen, Paper Prince. I will send what men I can spare. Not for you. For my blood." Her eyes glittered. "And when it is done, we will see which of you is left to rule anything." Rhaegar watched them all, a strange light in his eyes. "And you?" Jon asked him. "Where will you be while we fight your war?" "It was never mine," Rhaegar said. He slung the harp from his back, running fingers over the old scars in its wood. "It belongs to all of you, to the men in the ranks who will never know what songs were written about their deaths, to the children who will grow up either under dragons or under snow. My war ended in a river. This is something else." He smiled, sad and wry. "I will be where I should have been from the start, behind you listening, writing it down." Daenerys snorted. "You mean to be our minstrel?" "I mean to be honest," he said. "For once, to make sure when the realm tells this story, it does not forget any of its heads, or the hands that held them up." Jon shook his head. "You're mad." "Undoubtedly," Rhaegar said. "But perhaps the right sort at last?" The crows above them wheeled and cried, frustrated at the lack of immediate carrion. The wind shifted, bringing with it the distant scent of ice. 4 dragons of different kinds, one in the sky, one in armor, one in black, one with a harp, stood on a blasted field and chose, awkwardly painfully, to live together long enough to face death. It was messy. It was fragile. It was not the clean story bards prefer. It was enough. Years later, when the snows receded and the dead lay quiet again in their barrows of ice, when the wall was a scar instead of a prison, and the iron throne had been melted down into 12 plain chairs around a single low table. An old man sat in a rebuilt hall, overlooking a city that no longer stank quite as badly as it once had. Children played beneath the open rafters, their laughter echoing between stone pillars carved with wolves and dragons and roses and suns. Tapestries showed not one king riding a dragon, but many figures standing in a ring, their hands joined. In the courtyard beyond, a small white direwolf slept in the sun, while a larger dragon preened its scales on a tower. The old man's hair was mostly white now, though streaks of silver still glimmered in places. His fingers, though knotted with age, moved deftly over the strings of a harp. "What are you playing, grandfather?" a little girl asked, clambering into his lap without waiting for permission. Her hair was dark as ink, her eyes gray. When she smiled, he saw Lyanna. When she frowned, he saw Elia. When she demanded, he heard Daenerys. When she laughed, he heard Rhaenys. When she sulked, he heard Aegon. When she fell silent in thought, he heard Jon. "Our song," Rhaegar Targaryen said. "All of ours." She listened, head cocked, as the melody wound through the hall. It carried echoes of the old Valyrian airs he had once played in the Red Keep, of the marching songs of the Unsullied, of wildling pipe tunes, of Northmen laments, of Dornish ballads, of Spicer Street songs from King's Landing's lowest alleys. More than once, a chord shifted unexpectedly, resolving not into triumph or tragedy, but something stubbornly in between. "It's too long," the girl complained, wriggling. "It keeps changing. You should make it simpler." Rhaegar laughed softly. "I tried that once," he said. "It did not end well." "Tell me again," she said, as she always did. "About when all the dragons came back." He closed his eyes, just for a moment, feeling the ghosts gather around him like old friends. Arthur in his wet cloak, Aemon on his frozen throne, Elia in her tower, Lyanna in hers, Viserys raging and helpless, Daenerys striding through fire, Aegon, sword raised beneath a storm, Jon standing before a wall of blue flame with his cloak in tatters and his eyes full of a duty no one man should have to bear. "I'll tell you," he said, "if you promise me one thing." "What?" she asked, suspicious. "When you grow," he tapped her nose with one finger, "you won't let anyone tell you our story ends with a single person. Not me. Not you. Not any of them. Stories like ours never belong to just one head." She rolled her eyes in the way of children everywhere. "I know that. Mama says the same. She says if you'd all listened to grandmother sooner, there wouldn't have been so much mess." "No." Rhaegar raised an eyebrow. "Which grandmother?" The girl grinned. "All of them." He shook his head, smiling, and let his fingers fall into the next pattern. The notes rose and fell, weaving through the hall, through the city, through a realm that bore new scars and new joys alike. Once, a prince had stood on a riverbank and thought his death would save the world. Instead, the world had refused to let any of them die the way they were meant to. It had hoarded them, its would-be tragedies, scattering them across continents and years and prophecies, waiting for a moment when they might all, for a brief, burning while, stand together. Every Targaryen who was meant to shape history had lived long enough to do it. Not by ruling alone, but by learning, clumsily, painfully, imperfectly, to share a story. Rhaegar Targaryen played on, the song of ice and fire and everything between threading out into the bright, cold air. This time, he did not chase it. He listened. "Amen maiden, Padme." Rhaegar's fingers slowed, the last notes trembling in the air like breath on a winter morning. "Is that the end?" the girl asked, disappointed. "It can't be the end. You never even got to the bit where grandmother burned the throne." "Impatient," Rhaegar said, amused despite himself. "You have that from all of them, I think." "I've heard the short version," she said, wrinkling her nose. "Maester says the short version leaves out the good bits. Tell me the real one." From when you all met on the field with the crows. No. Rhaegar's gaze drifted past her, beyond the open hall, over the rebuilt walls, and the softened skyline of a city that had once been all jagged edges. Somewhere outside, a dragon snorted and shook its wings. Somewhere closer, a direwolf huffed in its sleep. "The field of crows," he murmured. "Yes, that is where we decided not to destroy each other, at least for a little while. And where you stopped being stupid," the girl said solemnly. He huffed a laugh. "Debatable. But we did, for a moment, become something else." "Nutty." She curled against his chest, small hands gripping his sleeve. "Start there." He closed his eyes, and the years fell away. Snow began to fall even as they argued. It came fine and dry at first, a dusting like flour over steel helms and fur cloaks, clinging to dragon scale and black leather alike. Men shifted in their saddles, breath steaming, eyes never straying too far from the beasts hulking at one edge of the field. Drogon did not like the cold. His tail lashed, churning up frozen clods of earth, wings twitching in agitated flickers. Rhaegal and Viserion shrank closer to his heat, smoke coiling from their nostrils. The crows that gave the field its name had taken to the sky at the first sight of them, circling warily. "Enough posturing," Tyrion Lannister said. "My toes are freezing, and if the dead arrive while we're still arguing names, they'll save themselves some work." He stood slightly behind Daenerys, half hidden in the lee of the dragon's shadow. The silver in his beard was new, the lines around his eyes older. He cradled a wineskin under his cloak like a child. Only his eyes were the same as the boy who had once stood on a wall with Jon Snow and pissed into the void. Cersei's lip curled. "You've chosen curious company, little brother. Once you advised my father. Now you hide under the wing of my enemies." Tyrion shrugged. "I've always had a weakness for lost causes and clever women, and for not freezing to death." Jon ignored their prickling. He looked from Daenerys to Aegon to Cersei, then fixed his gaze on Rhaegar. "You said there are only choices," Jon said. "What choice do you want us to make?" Rhaegar glanced at the circling crows. "The one that gives us the most time." "The dead don't care about time," Davos Seaworth said quietly. "They take what they like. I've seen them. They don't stop to listen to songs. Then we start with what they do care about." Rhaegar pointed north. Cold. Silence. The absence of fire. If there is one thing in this world they cannot ignore, it is dragons. Daenerys' chin lifted. "You mean to throw us at them like torches?" "I mean to place our greatest strength where it can do more good than harm," Rhaegar said. "You are fire made flesh, daughter. The dead are winter's teeth. If you don't meet them, they will devour all in between." "And while she is off in the snow chasing ghosts, what of the south?" Cersei demanded. "You expect me to leave my city to be gnawed by sellswords and small folk while the last of your house play with corpses?" "The south is already gnawed," Olenna Tyrell said, her voice sharp as a needle. She sat a horse like a sack of twigs, bundled in furs, green Tyrell cloak pinned at her shoulder. "By you, mostly. Be grateful you're invited to the fixing." "Lady Olenna," Margaery murmured. "Don't shush me, child. I'm old. I'll be dead before these creatures finish their march, one way or another." She squinted at Rhaegar. "You have a plan, Prince. You wouldn't have slunk from your grave just to watch us all flap at one another like hens." "A plan is too generous a word," Rhaegar said. "I have a shape. A way this might look that does not end in ash or ice. The details must be hammered out by those who actually enjoy hammering." Tyrion snorted softly. "He means us." Rhaegar stepped closer to Jon. Up close, the similarity was both sharper and stranger. Jon's features were Lyanna's, but the set of his mouth, the angle of his eyes when he narrowed them, those were Rhaegar's own, reflected back at him. "I would ask you to go north," Rhaegar said. "With the dragons, with any forces these southern kings and queens can be persuaded to send. Hold the wall, hold Winterfell, hold whatever ground can be held." Jon's eyes darkened. "We've been holding," he said. "The wall. The fist of the first men. Hardhome. We've held till our fingers bled and then some. We've broken too. If all you bring me is the same order with different banners, there was no need for this parley." "Me. Not a turner." Rhaegar inclined his head. "Fair. Then I will add this. You will not hold alone." He turned to Aegon. "You wanted to reclaim your birthright. You will start by defending the realm that birthright pretends to protect. March north with him." Aegon bristled. "My path is to King's Landing." "Your path is to a pile of rocks and a rotting lion if you don't get your priorities straight," Rhaegar snapped, sharper than he had intended. He caught himself, exhaled. "I am not asking you to abandon the South. I am asking you to delay it. If the dead sweep down, there will be no throne to steal and no small folk to rule. Just emptiness." Rhaenys touched her brother's arm. "We've marched and sailed for years for this, Aegon," she said. "We can march a little further for the world they told us we were meant to rule." His jaw worked. "And you?" "I go where the fight is," she said simply. "If the dead are in the north, that's where I'd like to meet them. I've had enough of fighting phantoms and stories and old men's plans." "Me." "And you, Your Grace." Rhaegar turned to Cersei. "What will you do?" Cersei's gaze slid to Jon Snow, then to Daenerys, then back to Rhaegar. "My men are tired. My coffers, thinner than I like. The city is restless. Every beggar in Flea Bottom has some story of dragons and wolves, and my counselors think dragons might be preferable to me." Her smile was small and sharp. "I will not waste my strength on a war I cannot see. I will hold the South, guard my walls, keep order." "Hide," Olenna translated, not unkindly. "She means hide." Cersei's eyes flashed. "I mean, survive." "And if the dead reach your walls?" Jon asked. "Will you still sit in your tower counting debts?" "If they reach the capital," Cersei said, "you will all be dead first. What I do afterward will be my own affair." "She'll send some men," Margaery said softly, before anyone could answer. "The Reach can spare more than the Crown lands. So can Dorne. So can the North, if Lord Stark agrees." "Lady Stark," Rhaegar corrected, surprising her. "Her brother is dead, killed in your war, Jon. Another child eaten by our failures." Jon flinched. Sansa's letter lay folded in his belt. The ink had smudged where his thumb had rested. "I will ask her," he said. "No," Rhaegar said. "You will tell her, but not yet." He looked at Tyrion. "You know this court, this city, these men. Can it survive without a single seat to fight over?" Tyrion's eyes flicked toward King's Landing's distant haze. "It won't like it," he said. "But it might, if given no choice." "Then that's the shape," Rhaegar said. "You go north. You hold. You live. While you do, I go south." Daenerys frowned. "South? To do what?" "To take away the throne," Rhaegar said, "before any of you can bleed yourselves dry for it." The field fell quiet. Even the dragons seemed to still, as though listening. "You would usurp Cersei," Aegon said slowly, "while we fight. Take the city in our absence. I would relieve the realm of a symbol that has done no one any real good," Rhaegar replied. "The Iron Throne was forged to bend men's wills to one man's rule. We have tried that for 3 centuries. It has not gone well." Cersei's face had gone very pale. "You will not take my throne," she whispered. "I will burn the city before I see another Targaryen sit that chair." "You won't," Tyrion said quietly. "Because if the dead come, your wildfire will burn blue, and then it won't be yours at all." Rhaegar stepped towards Cersei, hands open. "I don't want your throne," he said. "Not anymore. I want to break it, to make sure no one ever sits there again. You may keep your city, your jewels, your power such as it is behind your walls. But the throne dies with us. All of us. Aerys, Robert, Joffrey, Tommen, me. Ah, all of it. Eh, about... Cersei stared at him as if he had begun speaking High Valyrian backward. You expect me to trust that? I expect you to see that you have more to lose than anyone if you refuse, Rhaegar said. You have one child left, do you not? A boy? Think of him. Think of the world he will inherit if we don't break this chair you cling to. Her eyes flashed, but something behind them wavered. For a moment, Rhaegar glimpsed not the queen who had ordered a sept burned and a girl beaten, but the girl who had once stood in her father's hall and dreamed of being a prince. If you lie, she said finally, voice like ground glass, if you take my city and call yourself king, I will see your dragons strangled in their sleep. I will burn every man, woman, and child who calls you lord. You will have that chance, Rhaegar said, if the dead do not take it from you first. He turned away from her, to the others. This is as much truce as we will ever have, he said. North and south, fire and stone, wolves and lions and stags and dragons. We will sign no pretty parchment here. We will not all kneel to one another. But we can choose not to cut each other's throats until the cold passes. His gaze lingered on Jon, then Daenerys, then Aegon. After that, the world will look different. Perhaps different enough that we can find another path. Jon exhaled. You're asking a great deal on faith. Rhaegar allowed himself a crooked smile. I am a singer, Jon. It's all I have. Snow thickened, catching in hair and lashes, softening the hard edges of armor. Somewhere distant, a horn blew. Someone's scouts calling them back. Daenerys looked up at Drogon. The dragon's eyes glittered like embers. You will take away the throne, she said slowly. Then what? Then you decide together what replaces it, Rhaegar said. Tyrion coughed. No pressure. Jon stepped forward then, to Daenerys first. He held out his hand. It was rough, scarred, calloused. You said no more chains, he said. Help me make sure winter isn't just another one. She studied him, remembering a sword in his hand and a girl's body cradled in his arms on a rampart in Meereen, when she had seen him in a vision in the House of the Undying, remembering his eyes in the dragon pit when he had bent the knee to her in front of men who would call him Oathbreaker. Her fingers slid into his. We go together, she said. North. He nodded, then turned to Aegon. The boy. No, the man now. Hesitated only a heartbeat before clasping Jon's forearm. I will not bend the knee, Aegon said, stubborn even in compromise. Good, Jon said. I'm tired of knees. Rhaenys laughed, sudden and bright. We ride then, and let the dead see what they've woken. Me. Rhaegar watched them, the three of them standing there in the whitening field, hands joined for a moment. Fire and stone and snow. The future he had once tried to pour into a single name, now spread across three. It was not clean. It was not simple. It was, perhaps, their only chance. The raven they sent to Winterfell flew through flurries and over frozen lakes, the message tube at its leg knocking softly against its scaled skin. By the time it reached the rookery, Sansa Stark was already awake, watching snow fall through an arrow slit in her chambers. Wind moaned in the chimneys. The castle seemed to breathe. Maester Walken found her in the Godswood, cloaked in gray and white, hands bare on the bark of the heart tree. A raven from the south, my lady, he said, bowing. From the king in the south? From the Dragon Queen? From several of them, in fact. Sansa took the scroll carefully. The wax seals were a confusion of sigils. Three-headed dragon, crowned stag, lion, sun, and spear, rose. She broke them with her thumbnail, unrolled the thin parchment, and read. Her expression did not change. Only her fingers tightened. Summon the lords, she said. Those that remain. In the great hall, the banners of the north hung heavy. Many were patched. Many had new edges where old had burned. Men filled the benches, some with gray in their beards, some scarcely more than boys, all scarred in one way or another. "The south comes north," Sansa told them. Again. A rumble went through the hall. "Our father bled for the south," Lyanna Mormont said, barely tall enough to be seen above the table. "Your brother bled for them. What do they bring but fire and ruin and pretty words?" "Dragons," Sansa said. "And armies. And fear enough that even Cersei Lannister is willing to sign her name beside a wolf's. The Dead March. Jon has written of them before. The wall stands, but it cannot stand alone forever." A tall man with a hard, angular face and a missing ear slammed his cup down. "We remember," he said. "We remember Hardhome. The Fist. We remember black brothers asking for men and sending back corpses that walked. We've sent our sons and our grain. Now they ask for our lords." "No, they ask for me," Sansa said. The hall stilled. "They ask that the North's lady ride to Winterfell's gates to meet 3 dragons and the men who command them," she went on. "They ask for our fealty not to one king but to a cause, to a war against death." "A war we're already fighting," Lyanna said, "and for which we've already paid. Why should we trust Dragonfire now?" "Because winter is not just our problem anymore," Sansa said. "Because the dead will not stop at Moat Cailin and turn back politely at the Trident. Because when the snow falls and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies. But the pack survives." Her voice did not waver on the words her father had once said. "The North is a pack, and now the pack has grown." "Bastard's words," muttered someone near the back. "We followed Jon Snow when he called. He broke his vows. He bent the knee to a foreign queen. Now he comes with dragons at his back and a southern father." Spit hit the floor. "What is he now?" "This message says he's some prince with a name we never swore to." "Are we expected to kneel again, every time some Targaryen crawls from the ashes of their own madness?" "No." And Sansa met the man's gaze, and the hall quieted for reasons that had nothing to do with dragons. "Jon was never just our bastard," she said. "He was our shield, our sword. He died for us. He came back for us. Whatever name he wears now does not change that." She looked around the hall. "We gave him our trust once. He was worthy of it. I choose to believe he still is." Silence stretched. Somewhere near the doors, someone coughed. Lyanna Mormont's chin jutted. "The bears will stand with Winterfell," she said. "We always have." One by one, other lords spoke. The Umbers, what few were left. The Glovers, grudging but present. The Serwyns, the Tallhearts, the Wolves. Even a man with Karstark features stood, though his banner had no sunburst now, only a plain white field. "Then we will meet them," Sansa said. "As the North, not as supplicants, as partners in a war they cannot win without us." She lifted her chin. "Open the gates. Prepare the halls. The dragons are coming to Winterfell." "No." They saw the smoke first. It smudged the horizon to the south, a dark streak against the pale sky. Men on the battlements shaded their eyes, muttering. Some gripped spears tighter. Others touched charms, the old gods and the new both invoked under their breath. "Is that fire?" Arya asked, appearing at Sansa's elbow like a gray shadow. "When dragons fly, they carry their own weather," Sansa said. Arya snorted. "You sound like Maester Luwin." He said it twice as often when he was wrong. They watched as the shapes resolved from distant blotches into something more distinct. 3 dark figures rode the sky, black against gray, wings wider than any sail. Below, a river of smaller motion, men and horses and wagons, banners fluttering on the wind. "That's him," Arya said quietly, when the foremost dragon dipped, banking. "On the biggest one." "Which?" Sansa asked. It was hard to tell at this distance. "You'll see." The dragon roared. The sound rolled over the castle like thunder, rattling shutters, silencing the yard below. Horses reared. Men flinched. Children squealed and ran for cover. Drogon descended toward the courtyard, his shadow swallowing the stone. Men scattered, then rallied, half-parted in an instinctive, terrified corridor. Snow hissed to steam where his talons struck. His wings folded with a leathery crack. On his back, Daenerys Targaryen sat like a flame. She swung down with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times, landing lightly on the packed snow. Her hair was braided back from her face, silver white against the deep blue of her cloak. 3 dragons twined at her throat. A sword hung at her hip, its hilt dragonbone. Sansa descended the steps slowly, every inch the Lady of Winterfell, furs sweeping behind her. Arya moved at her side, in leathers and wool, a small blade at her hip. Daenerys' gaze swept the courtyard, assessing the walls, the men, the snow, the banners. When it settled on Sansa, something flickered. Curiosity, wariness, a flicker of something like respect. "Lady Stark," Daenerys said. "Your Grace?" Sansa replied. She inclined her head but did not kneel. Dany's mouth twitched. "I was beginning to tire of knees." Behind her another dragon landed, regal, green and bronze. Aegon swung down from its neck, armor still dusty from travel. Rhaenys dropped beside him, spear in hand, eyes bright as she scanned the northerners with a soldier's interest. A third shape circled high overhead, smaller, pale. Viserion shrieked once, then banked away, vanishing into cloud. And then the gates opened again, and Jon rode through. For a heartbeat, the courtyard stilled. Snowflakes spun between them, fine as ash. He looked thinner than last Sansa had seen him, harder, the lines at the corners of his mouth deeper. His hair was longer, tied back. He wore a black cloak over black leathers, the direwolf of Stark and the burning heart of Arlor sewn side by side on his chest. Ghost padded at his side, fur bright against the snow. Sansa descended the last steps faster than she meant to. She stopped only when she stood a pace away from him. "Jon," she said. He looked up, and something in his face eased. "Sansa." They embraced awkwardly, armor and fur and swords getting in the way. For a moment, Sansa was no lady, no survivor of King's Landing and Ramsay Bolton. She was just a girl clinging to the last familiar thing in a world of dragons. "You're late," she said into his shoulder. "I died," he said. "Got held up." She thumped his chest. "You always did have an excuse." Around them, the courtyard exhaled. Men laughed, nervously at first, then more freely. Dragons hissed and shook their heads. Daenerys watched the reunion with an expression Sansa could not immediately read. There was warmth there. Yes, and something like longing. And something else coiled deep and tight. When Jon turned, she stepped forward. "This is Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen," Jon said. "Breaker of chains. Mother of—" "Daenerys will do," she cut in. Her breath fogged in the cold. She gathered her cloak tighter. "We've no time for full titles." Sansa inclined her head. "Winterfell thanks you for coming," she said. "We have little to offer save cold and hard bread." "And a chance to live," Daenerys said. "That is enough." Aegon stepped forward then, Rhaenys at his shoulder. His hair, freed of dye, blew silver gold in the wind. His eyes were the deep, dark violet of old Valyria. "Aegon Targaryen," he said. Far too many titles to recite in this cold. I mean, only this one right now. Ally." Sansa studied him. "We were told you died as a babe," she said. "Smashed against a wall." "That babe died," Aegon said. "I did not. It is a distinction the realm will struggle with." "We have some practice with that," Arya said vaguely. Rhaenys' gaze flicked to her sharp. "And you are?" "Arya Stark," Arya said. "Of Winterfell. Of nowhere. Of everywhere. Now." Rhaenys grinned. "We'll get on." Above them, Viserion shrieked again, distant. A shadow passed briefly over the courtyard. Men muttered, glancing up uneasily. "Where's the fourth?" Sansa asked quietly. When Rhaegar dismounted from a dun gelding at the edge of the yard, all but unnoticed in the dragon spectacle. "The fourth?" he echoed. "The letter mentions you," she said, eyes cool. "The prince who was meant to die. The one who did and didn't. My father's enemy. My aunt's." Her jaw tightened. "Her, whatever you were." Rhaegar bowed his head. "Nothing she did not choose," he said. "Not that it matters now." Sansa stared at him for a long moment. In his face she saw traces of a man she had never met, whose choices had shattered her family before she was born. In his eyes she saw something like apology. "My father hated you," she said at last. "I know," Rhaegar replied. "He was not often wrong," she said. "But he was not always right either." She turned away before he could decide what that meant. That night, in Winterfell's Great Hall, they packed 3 wars worth of enemies and uneasy allies under one roof. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of mutton. Men eyed each other across trenches of food, one hand always near a hilt. Rhaegar stood at the edge of it all, hands folded, listening. The North's voices braided with the South's, flat northern vowels, lilting Reach accents, the clipped edges of Dornish speech, the guttural roll of free folk, the harsh bark of unsullied commands in Astapori Valyrian. "This hall has seen too many kings," he murmured. "Then don't stand like one," Bran Stark said from his wheeled chair by the fire. Rhaegar turned, startled. The boy, no, the young man, had the same dark hair as his siblings, the same long face, but his eyes were something else. They were not old, exactly, but deep, as if they looked past Rhaegar into something further on. "You must be Brandon," Rhaegar said. "Your father's namesake." Bran regarded him matter-of-factly. "You don't belong here," he said. Rhaegar blinked. "My blood." "I don't mean your blood," Bran said. "You were supposed to die at the Trident. I've seen it. The water, the rubies, the way your head should have broken." He tilted his head. Something reached in and changed it, tugged the river another way. Something? Rhaegar repeated. Someone. Many someones. Bran's gaze flicked briefly to the fire, where shadows moved. Varys, Arthur Dayne, Elia, Lyanna, even my father in a way. You were supposed to be a note in a song. Now you're part of the chorus. Rhaegar sat slowly on the bench beside him. "And what are you, Brandon Stark?" Bran's mouth quirked. "The boy who fell," he said. "The tree that grew sideways. The memory that learned to walk." "You sound like a singer," Rhaegar said. "People say I sound like a lot of things," Bran said. "Most of them are wrong." His gaze sharpened. "Jon does not know." "No," Rhaegar said softly. "He does not." "You mean to tell him?" Bran asked. "Yes," Rhaegar said. "If we live." Bran nodded, as if he had expected no other answer. "You'll have to be quicker than winter," he said. "It marches." Outside, beyond the walls of Winterfell, the night was clear. Stars freckled the sky. The aurora, which had been a faint smear of color a few nights before, brightened, pulsing green and blue and ghostly red. In the far distance, beyond the wall, shadows moved. The first clash came at Eastwatch. Jon rode out to meet it with Tormund Giantsbane at his side, and a column of free folk at his back, their furs bright against the snow. Above them Daenerys flew, Drogon's roar carrying for miles. Viserion and Rhaegal flanked, white breath steaming in the cold. The dead marched like a tide. Their ranks were endless, a river of blue eyes and rotting flesh and brittle bone. The wind carried the clink of ice on ice, the crack of frozen leather. At their head rode the White Walkers, tall and pale on their dead horses, weapons of glass that caught the aurora's light. Jon had faced them before. This time, he did not do it with a handful of black brothers on a hill. "Dragons first," he shouted to Daenerys, as Drogon wheeled overhead. "Break the front ranks." We hold the line behind." Fire fell from the sky. Drogon swept low, a torrent of flame pouring from his jaws. It hit the leading ranks of the dead and exploded outward, molten orange against icy blue. Whites shrieked, bodies collapsing, limbs flailing as they burned. The smell of scorched rot filled the air. Rhaegal and Viserion followed, their own streams of fire cutting swaths through the horde. For a moment, Jon allowed himself to hope. Then the Night King raised his hand. The flames flickered. For an instant, every fire on the field seemed to lean toward the pale figure on the ridge. The dragon's breath, the torches in men's hands, the embers in the broken walls of Eastwatch. Cold rushed in, biting at lungs and fingers and the edges of thought. Drogon roared, fighting it. Rhaegal shuddered, his fire sputtering. Viserion faltered mid-flight, wing beats uneven. "Stay with me," Daenerys whispered, fingers digging into Drogon's neck ridges. "Stay with me." On the ground, Tormund charged with a wild yell, his axe a blur. The free folk crashed into the front ranks of the Whites, hacking, shoving, biting. Behind them, Unsullied advanced in disciplined lines, spears thrusting with cold precision. Northern men roared the names of their gods and plunged forward. Jon's sword, Longclaw, Valyrian steel, ghost gray, sang as it met the first walker's blade. Frost exploded where the two metals met, shards spraying. The walker shrieked, its face warping and shattered under Jon's next stroke. As it fell, a dozen Whites around it collapsed, lifeless at last. "Take them down," Jon shouted. "Cut the walkers! The dead fall with them!" A horn blew behind him. He risked a glance back. Rhaenys rode the line where the Golden Company had met the dead, spear a streak of silver in the air. Beside her, Aegon fought with a sword whose hilt gleamed faintly blue in the aurora's light. A blade sent by Dorne, forged from the last remnants of daylight steel in Sunspear's vaults. Behind them, Sellswords, who had once prided themselves on never breaking a contract, found themselves breaking the tide of death instead. The ice cracked. For an instant, Jon thought it was the sound of a walker's blade. Then the ridge itself shuddered. A fissure split the earth, racing toward the wall's ruined edge. The Night King watched, expressionless, as chunks of ancient ice sheared away, crashing into the frozen sea below. "They're breaking through!" someone screamed. "No!" Jon shouted. "They're going around." The Night King's gaze shifted to the sky. Viserion was flagging. His wings beat slower. Frost crept along the edges of his scales where the cold had bitten deep. When he opened his jaws to roar, the sound stuttered. The Night King raised his spear. "Dany!" Jon yelled, though she could not hear him over wind and distance and battle. She saw, though. Drogon banked hard, interposing his bulk between the Night King and his target. The spear left a white trail through the air, a line of pure winter. It struck Drogon in the shoulder. The dragon screamed. Heat exploded outward in a wave, the fire inside him clashing with the unnatural cold of the weapon. For a heartbeat, his wings locked. Then he righted himself, blood and steam fountaining from the wound. "Stay with me," Daenerys whispered again, teeth bared. "You stubborn old lizard, stay." He did, but his fire burned less bright. The Night King lowered his arm, head tilting slightly, as though considering this new information. Then he tugged on whatever invisible strings bound his army, and the dead began to fall back. "Coward!" Tormund roared. "Come back and die proper." "They're not retreating," Jon said, chest heaving. "They're, repositioning." "Like a man in a battle," Aegon said, riding up beside him, cloak torn, face streaked with grime. "They learn." Jon's heart thudded heavily. "Winterfell," he said. "What about it?" Aegon asked. "It's not just a castle," Jon said. "It's the crossing. The place where they'll want to break us. They know dragons can't be everywhere at once. They'll find the place that matters most and hit it hardest." His hand tightened on Longclaw's hilt. "We have to get back," he said. Winterfell had never looked small to Daenerys before. When she and her dragons had first flown over its walls, it had seemed a great gray beast crouched in the snow, solid and stubborn. Now, circling high above, she saw how thin its defenses really were against the storm rolling down from the north. Men swarmed like ants below, Black brothers on the walls beside Mormont and Glover men-at-arms, free folk mingling uneasily with northern smallfolk. Fires burned in trenches, their smoke whipped by the wind. On the Godswood's edge, the heart tree stood, its white bark stark against dark leaves. Bran waited beneath it in his chair, eyes distant. Sansa stood on the battlements, cloak snapping. She held no sword. She had never needed one. Her weapons had always been words, looks, quiet choices. Today she had nothing left to choose. Arya was nowhere to be seen, which meant she was exactly where she wanted to be. Drogon screamed as Daenerys urged him lower. "It's coming!" she shouted to Sansa as she swooped past. "The main host. You need to get the children and the old below ground." "They're already there," Sansa called back, hair whipping. "If we fall, they fall with us." "We won't fall," Jon said, riding through the gate with Aegon at his side and Rhaenys just behind. Ghost darted ahead, teeth bared. Sansa's eyes met his. They were steady. "Good," she said. "I've run enough." The dead came with the sunset. They poured from the tree line in a wall of pale bodies, their eyes candles in the dusk. Their hands clawed at the snow, their mouths opened in soundless howls. Above them, the walkers rode with their ice spears in perfect stillness. The first clash was at the outer trenches. Fire flared, catching the front ranks, slowing them. The dead behind simply climbed over their burning kin, heedless. "No!" Jon shouted. Dragonfire met zombies in a blast that lit the fields like noon. Drogon roared, sweeping his flame in a wide arc. Rhaegal followed, his green fire a second wave. Viserion recovered enough, unleashed his own stream, thinner but still deadly. The snow turned to slush under the heat. Bodies blackened and crumbled. And still they came. On the wall, archers loosed. Arrows shattered on ice, buried in rotting flesh, punched through glowing blue eyes. Some whites fell, limbs twitching. More simply pushed past. When the dead hit the walls, the sound was a dull, relentless thudding. Hands clawed at stone. Bodies piled, forming ramps of bone and frozen flesh. Men hacked at them with swords and pikes, pushing ladders back, shoving corpses down. At the main gate, Unsullied braced their spears, shields locked. Grey Worm's face was calm, his movements precise. When the first wave reached them, he did not step back. "Hold!" he shouted, in a voice that had once only known commands, not their giving. "Hold!" Spears punched through rib cages, skulls, necks. The dead did not scream. They simply pressed. In the Godswood, Bran's eyes were white. He saw the battle from angles no man on the field could. A crow's view of dragons wheeling, of snow churning under hooves, of a pale figure walking through the storm untouched by any blade. A wolf's view of teeth and cold flesh. A tree's view of blood soaking into roots that had drunk kings and beggars both. He followed the Night King's path. The creature did not rush. It did not hack and slash. It moved with awful patience, like frost creeping along a window pane. Wherever it passed, heat dimmed. It would go, Bran realized, where the stories converged. It turned toward the Godswood. "Of course," Bran murmured. His voice not his own. "You come for me, for the memory. Break the story, and nothing holds." In the hall below, Sansa directed men to barricades and passages. She had a map in her head, not of walls and gates, but of people. Where they'd run, where they'd break, where they'd stand. "Lady Sansa," a boy panted, skidding on melting snow. "The dead. They're in the courtyard." She grabbed his shoulders. "Look at me," she said. "Have you ever known me to lie to you?" The boy shook his head, eyes wide. Then listen, she said. You will go to the kitchens. You will tell them to keep the fires going. You will stand by the door with a knife, and you will not open it unless I, or Arya, or Jon, or Daenerys herself tells you to. Can you do that? He swallowed. Yes, my lady. Good. She let him go. Go, then. And remember that when the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, he whispered. But the pack survives. She smiled, though her throat ached. There's a good lad. In the courtyard. Jon met the walker. It stepped through a gap where the gate had splintered, ice blade dripping frost. Men fell back rather than face it. Their fear was tangible, a living thing. Jon stepped forward, Longclaw in his hand. They clashed in a spray of blue sparks and white dust. The walker's movements were fluid, almost beautiful. Jon's were brutal, born of desperate practice. Their blades locked. Frost crept up Longclaw's edge, stopped where Valyrian steel's old spells pushed back. The walker hissed, face cracking. Jon drove his sword through its chest. It shattered, shards whirling. On the eastern wall, a stretch of whites collapsed like puppets with their strings severed. It works! Someone shouted. Kill the Pale Ones. Find the Night King, Jon yelled. We end him. We end this. Easier said, Aegon panted, cutting down a white that had nearly taken his leg. Drogon shrieked, rearing. The air around him had grown colder. Frost rimed his nostrils. The Night King stepped into the godswood. The snow muffled his footsteps. The heart tree loomed above, its carved face weeping red. Bran watched him come, white eyes unblinking. You've been a long time, Bran said. His voice was layered, boy and crow and something older. All those years in the dark, all that walking, all that waiting. The Night King tilted his head. No breath misted the air before his face. His eyes glowed, unearthly. You remember, Bran said. You remember the fire, the children, the dragon glass in your heart. You remember you were something else once. He smiled, small and sad. So do I. That's why you're here, to erase the memory. The walker raised his spear. Arya moved before he could throw it. She sprang from the branches of the weirwood like a shadow, blade in hand. The Night King turned, impossibly fast, hands snapping up to catch her mitolape. For an instant, his fingers closed around her throat. Her eyes met his. There was no fear there, only a hard, cold satisfaction. She dropped the dagger. It fell, a glint of Valyrian steel, a flicker of reflected blue, then vanished from sight as her free hand caught it mid-fall. She drove it up into his chest, into the place where the children of the forest had once driven dragonglass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks spiderwebbed out from the wound, crawling across the Night King's chest, up his throat, over his frozen face. He shattered, shards dissolving into snow. Outside, the army of the dead screamed without mouths. Their bodies jerked, spasmed, fell. Across the field, whites collapsed where they stood. Some simply stilled. Others crumbled to dust. The white walkers nearest the heart tree broke like glass, their mounts disintegrating under them. On the wall, men stared as their enemies came apart in front of them. Is it done? Someone whispered. Jon sagged, chest heaving. Ghost stood beside him. Fur bristling, teeth bared. In the sky above, Drogon faltered, then steadied, as if some crushing weight had lifted. Daenerys pressed her forehead to his neck. It's over, she whispered. It has to be. In the godswood, Arya landed in the snow and rolled, gasping. Bran looked down at her. You were always going to do that, he said. She wiped frost from her face. Good, she said hoarsely. I'm tired of everyone else deciding my fate." Sansa arrived moments later, cloak trailing, hair wild. She stopped at the sight of the shattered ice, the empty space where the Night King had stood. "Is it?" Arya nodded. Sansa swallowed. "Then the real war starts," she said. The march south began less than a fortnight later. The dead had left their own horror behind. Fields of corpses that did not rise, burned swathes of forest, villages reduced to charred frames. The living moved through them with grim purpose. There were fewer of them than there had been. Grey Worm walked with a limp now. Half the Unsullied lay in the snow, their bodies stacked with northern dead. Half the Golden Company had fallen from wounds no coin could prevent. Wildlings buried their own in shallow graves, marking them with stones rather than burning. The old ways died hard. "The wall will need rebuilding," Jon said to Ed and the few remaining brothers of the Watch. Not as it was, but something. A line? A memory. "The what?" Ed said. "What are we? Now the dead are gone. A story no one will want to tell their children." Jon thought of Aemon's words in the Night Fort, of duty and blood, and the need for men who held the line even when no one was looking. "There will always be something in the dark," he said. "Not this, but something. The Watch can be different, smaller. No more conscripted men sent here to rot. Volunteers, rotating postings, a promise kept between realms." "Listen to you," Ed said. "Talking like a king." "Don't," Jon said, as if the word itself hurt. "You may not want it," Ed said, "but it wants you." Jon left him then, before he could answer that. At Winterfell they said tearful farewells and sharp ones. Tormund and the bulk of the Free Folk turned their faces north again, muttering about too many walls and too little sky. "You're always welcome with us," Tormund told Jon. "When all this king nonsense is done." Coming from anyone else, it would have sounded like a jest. Sansa stood on the battlements and watched the dragons take off. Drogon's wings beat once, twice, casting gusts of wind across the yard. Rhaegal followed, scales glinting green. Viserion, patched and scarred, struggled a little, then found his rhythm. "You'll go with them," she said to Jon, not quite a question. "For now," he said. "The South won't fix itself. Rhaegar needs someone there who remembers what winter feels like." Sansa's mouth twisted. He should have thought of that before he broke everything. "He did," Jon said. "He just thought he could fix it by himself." She studied him. "And you?" "I don't know what I thought," Jon admitted. "I still don't." She took his hand, squeezed it. "Whatever name you end up wearing," she said, "you'll always be my brother." He swallowed. "Always," he said. Bran watched them from the Godswood, seeing layers of time overlay the courtyard like sheets of smoke. He saw Ned riding out with Benjen. He saw Robb with his banners. He saw himself falling. He saw a girl with auburn hair stepping into a courtyard with a Lannister crown on her head, and he shifted, pushing that aside. That was a path they had avoided. Barely. "What now?" Arya asked, appearing beside him. "Now they go south," Bran said. "To melt the throne." "You say that like it's easy," she said. "It won't be," Bran said. "But it will be necessary." "Maybe I should come," she said. "Cersei owes me a face." Bran's gaze turned south. He saw a queen in a tower of stone, fingers tied around a cup of wine, eyes red from lack of sleep. He saw a pyromancer's vaults. He saw streets full of people who did not know a battle was coming. "No," he said. "Your road goes another way." She huffed. "Of course it does. Your list is shorter now," he said. "Not short enough," she replied. He smiled faintly. "It never is." King's Landing smelled worse than Daenerys remembered. She had only seen it once before, from the air, when she had flown to the dragon pit to show her enemies what fire looked like. Then, it had merely seemed vast and ugly, its crooked streets coiling around the hill like a nest of snakes. Now, as she circled above, she smelled the rot beneath. Flea-Bottom's crowded alley stank of latrines and cooking fires and too many bodies in too little space. The river stank of sewage and dead fish. The richer district stank of spilled wine and unwashed silk and fear. Drogon growled. "I know," she murmured. "I know." Below, on the city's walls, scorpions waited. Huge crossbows mounted on swivels, their bolts tipped with something that glittered. Men in Lannister red and gold moved about them, adjusting angles. On the Red Keep's highest tower, Cersei stood with Qyburn and a clutch of guards, watching the dragons approach. "They're weak from the north," Qyburn murmured. "We have the wildfire stores beneath the sept, beneath the city. One spark in the right place and we burn with them," Cersei said. "I tried fire once. It cost me my children." Her hand shook. She gripped the parapet until her knuckles whitened. "No, not yet." "What would you do then, Your Grace?" Qyburn asked. She watched the dragons circle. 3, where once there had been reports of only 1 at the Trident. 3, where her father had insisted the line was broken. "I will see what the ghosts want," she said. The dragons banked away, climbing. Daenerys guided Drogon higher, feeling the air thin. "Stay out of bolt range," Tyrion said from behind her, voice muffled by the wind. He clung awkwardly to the saddle straps. Dragon riding did not suit him. "You saw what those scorpions did on the Blackwater." "I saw what their bolts did to Rhaegal once," she said. "I won't let them do it again." Below, on the plain outside the city walls, armies arrayed. The Golden Company, diminished but still disciplined. Their elephant banners limp in the still afternoon. Northern men in their furs. Dornish spears. Reachmen with their green and gold. Unsullied ranks, straight as oiled spears. Wildlings muttering about too much stone. Jon sat astride his horse near the front. Aegon waited nearby. His banner, 3-headed dragon quartered with the sun and spear of Dorne, stirring. Rhaegar sat behind them, cloak plain, harp on his back, sword at his hip. "Ready?" Rhaegar asked. "No," Jon said. "Good," Rhaegar replied. "Men who enjoy this sort of thing are the ones we should fear." They rode forward together to the city gates, under a flag of truce. Cersei met them on the walls. "You look older," she called down to Rhaegar. "Graves don't flatter anyone." "You look tired," he called back. "Thrones don't either." "A poet still," she said. "How charming." "Enough," Jon said before Rhaegar could retort. "We're not here for words." "What then?" Cersei's voice carried clearly. "You've marched half the world to my doorstep with dragons overhead and armies at your back? You call that peace?" "We call it an end," Daenerys said, landing Drogon at a distance that still made the walls tremble. She dismounted, cloak billowing, and walked forward alone, trusting that fear was as much armor as leather. Cersei's eyes narrowed. "You survived the North." "So did most of my people," Dany said. "Can your city say the same of your wars?" Cersei's mouth twitched. "You would have burned us all," she said. "I've heard the stories from Meereen, Astapor. Your justice is fire." "I learned from that," Dany said. "I learned where fire helps and where it only feeds itself. I did not burn this city when I had only 1 dragon and no reason not to. Do you think I came here to do it now with my kin beside me and a new world within reach?" "You came to take what you think is yours," Cersei said. "Just as your father did. Just as his before him. Fire and blood. The Targaryen way. Manandi. "I came to end this chair you're clinging to," Daenerys said. "The Iron Throne. The thing that made your father and mine and Robert and Joffrey and all the rest into monsters." Cersei laughed. "You blame the furniture now? How convenient." "The throne is a symbol," Tyrion called. "And symbols rule men's minds. Break the symbol, break the chain." Cersei's gaze cut to him. "You've been reciting riddles since you were old enough to talk, little brother," You think I never listened? I think you listened only to yourself, he said. Rhaegar stepped forward. We have a proposal, he said. Cersei tilted her head. I imagine you do. We will not sack your city, Rhaegar said. We will not burn it. We will not slaughter your people. In return, you will open your gates and allow us into the Red Keep, not with the full host, only a small delegation. Yourself, me, Daenerys, Jon, Aegon, Tyrion, a handful of guards each. Cersei's eyes narrowed. So you can slit my throat in a hall instead of a field. So we can melt the throne, Rhaegar said, and decide together what stands in its place. You expect me to stand in a room with all of you and watch you destroy the only thing that gives my son any claim to rule? Her voice sharpened. Tommen's name may be mud in this city, but it is still written in the books. You would wipe it away with dragonfire. Tommen is gone, Rhaegar said. Your last child is the realm you leave behind. It will not care what chair he sat on. It will care whether it fed him or ate him. Silence fell. On the wall, Qyburn leaned close. Your Grace, he murmured. We can't allow them inside. One dragon in the yard. Be quiet, Cersei snapped. She stared down at Rhaegar, at Jon, at Daenerys, at Aegon, at the armies behind them, at the dragons in the sky. You could burn me where I stand, she said. Why go through this farce of courtesy? Because if we burn you, Daenerys said, we burn your city with you. And I promised myself I would never do that. Her gaze did not waver. Because if we storm your gates, more of my people die, and more of yours. And I am tired of counting dead. Because we killed death itself in the snow, and I have no wish to trade it for a smaller, pettier shadow here. Men to be. Because I owe you, Rhaegar added. Cersei's head snapped toward him. When your father rode to my father's aid, he said, I was too busy chasing a prophecy to see the trap we set for ourselves. His banners gave Robert his crown. His cunning gave the lions their feast. I sang in my tents and thought I was above such things. I wasn't. I am as much to blame for your suffering as anyone. Cersei stared at him, stunned by the admission. You think an apology buys my obedience? She asked. No, he said. I think it buys me the right to ask. The wind tugged at her hair. From beyond the walls came the faint sound of restless crowds, the murmur of thousands of lives waiting for a verdict. You would have me walk into a room with all my enemies, she said slowly. With no wildfire, no army at my back, no certainty that I walk out again. Yes, Rhaegar said. She laughed once, harsh and incredulous. Very well, she said. Let's see if ghosts can be trusted. The throne room smelled of dust. Cersei had ordered it scrubbed after the Citadel's men had catalogued it, after the last of Joffrey's scepters and Tommen's songbooks had been carried away. Still, the reek of spilled wine and fear lingered. The Iron Throne loomed at the far end, its twisted blades dull in the half-light. No one sat it now. It seemed to crouch, waiting. This thing has cut more kings than any blade on a battlefield, Tyrion said, standing at the foot of the steps. Aerys, Robert, Joffrey. I once cut myself on it as a boy. It felt inevitable. Nothing is inevitable, Rhaegar said. Not even this. Jon stood a few paces away, long claw in hand, eyes on the door. Aegon and Rhaenys flanked him, blades drawn. Grey Worm and a small knot of Unsullied waited near the pillars, spears ready. Brienne of Tarth stood by Cersei's shoulder, shield up, jaw set. Daenerys walked forward alone. The throne scraped at her memory. She saw it in flames, in visions, in her brother's shrieking dreams. She saw herself in shadow, black silhouette against fire, wings unfurling where her arms should be. She put her hand on Drogon's side. The dragon had followed her into the hall, scales scraping stone. His bulk filled half the space. The air grew hotter around him. His eyes gleamed. You remember what I told you, Daenerys murmured. Only this? Only here? Drogon snorted, smoke curling from his nostrils. Cersei watched, pale but upright. Her hands were empty. Qyburn had not been allowed inside. Neither had any pyromancers. Even her guards carried only plain steel. "You're certain this will work?" she asked, voice low enough that only those closest heard. "No," Daenerys said, "but I'm certain that leaving it standing will not." She stood at the base of the steps, looking up at the throne. It looked smaller than it had in her dreams. Less inevitable. She thought of the house with the red door, of the slave markets of Astapor, of the fighting pits of Meereen, of the faces of men and women she had freed and failed and freed again. She thought of the North, of Jon's hand on hers in the snow, of Arya's knife in ice, of Bran's empty eyes, of Sansa on the walls. She thought of her ancestors, burning and burned. "No more chains," she said. Drogon roared. Fire engulfed the throne. It poured from his mouth in a torrent, white-hot at the core, red and orange and gold at the edges. It splashed against the iron, which glowed dull red, then brighter. The blades began to sag, their shapes warping. Rivets popped, hissing. The sound was deafening. Heat rolled through the hall. Men flinched back, hands thrown up to shield their faces. Jon stood his ground, jaw clenched. Cersei swayed where she stood. Brienne's shield rose instinctively between her lady and the worst of it. The throne melted. Blades warped, slumping, their edges losing definition. Steel flowed like water, pooling at the base of the dais. The armrests dissolved. The back collapsed in on itself. When Drogon's breath finally ceased, the great chair was no more. In its place lay a cooling puddle of metal, still glowing in places, rippling faintly. No one spoke. Cersei's face was ash-white. "Centuries," she whispered. 3 centuries that thing sat there. Men killed and died for it. My father, my sons, my brothers. You melted in an afternoon. 3 centuries of mistakes, Daenerys said. Her voice shook, whether from strain or something else. "We have enough ash. Let's build something else." "No. Hey, what?" Aegon demanded. What replaces that?" He pointed at the cooling metal. "We cannot simply not rule." "We will rule," Rhaegar said, "but not as our fathers did. Not from a chair above, but from a table among." He nodded to Grey Worm, who barked in order. Unsullied moved forward, setting down heavy planks, trestles, legs. Carpenters emerged from side doors, sweating, carrying sections of carved wood. In minutes, where the throne had been, a table stood. It was round, roughly, its surface carved with a map of Westeros and the surrounding seas. 12 chairs were set around it, plain but sturdy. On each chair's back, a different sigil had been carved. Wolf, lion, dragon, rose, stag, trout, sun and spear, kraken, falcon, flayed man. 3 ships, Black Gate. "Stole the idea from Aegon the First," Tyrion said, watching. "He had his painted table on Dragonstone. Saw the whole realm laid out before him when he planned his conquest. Only he sat at the head. He never did understand circles. This is a small council table." Cersei sneered. "You cannot run a realm from carpentry." "Perhaps not," Jon said. "But we can start here." He stepped forward, placing Longclaw on the table for a moment. The sword's Valyrian steel caught the light from the molten metal. "The North will sit this table," he said. "Not as a subject, but as a partner. Sansa will speak for us, or whoever comes after her. We will guard the wall and the passes. We will send men south when needed. We will expect the same in return." "The Reach will sit it," Margaery said, surprising her grandmother by stepping forward from the crowd by the doors. "We will feed this realm. We will not be bled dry by endless wars for crowns." "Oi? Dorne will sit it," Rhaenys said. "We have bent for dragons before. It did not go well. This time we bend to no one, but we will sit and speak." That is acceptable. The Iron Islands will need convincing, Yara Greyjoy said dryly, arms folded. But I'll drag a chair there for us. Cersei stared at the table as if it might lunge and bite her. And who sits the dragon chair? She asked. Daenerys looked at Jon. Jon looked at Aegon. Aegon looked at Rhaegar. Rhaegar shook his head. Not me, he said. I had my chance. Not me, Jon said immediately. I swore a vow to the Night's Watch. I've broken enough oaths for one lifetime. I will sit for the North when asked. No more. Aegon hesitated. I was raised for a throne, he said. For this throne, whatever we build, I must be part of it. You will be, Daenerys said. But not alone. She touched the carved dragon chair back, fingers light. We will not have a king or a queen above all, she said, the words half-formed as she spoke them. We will have 3 or more. A council of rulers, chosen by their realms, serving for a span of years. 10, 12 die. Long enough to do good, not long enough to rot. Nay. You propose to make yourself disposable, Tyrion said, astonished. I propose to make us all so, she said. Power was never meant to be a lifetime sentence. Cersei laughed, short and raw. You think the lords will accept that? That they will surrender their crowns every dozen years because some dragons told them to? They'll accept it, Jon said. If the alternative is another long night. Rhaegar touched the table's edge, feeling the carved rivers, the ridges of the mountains. We asked the great houses to send their chosen, he said. Not always their lords. Sometimes their seconds, their daughters, their bastards. We make this table as varied as the realm. And when they refuse? Cersei asked. Then we live as an example without them, Daenerys said. We show that it can be done. That the realm can be held in hands that know they will one day let it go. That we can rule not for our blood, but for our people. May. Cersei's gaze swept the room. You may manage it for a time, she said. You may even convince yourselves you've broken the wheel. But men are what they are. So are women. Ambition doesn't vanish because you burn a chair. No, Rhaegar said. But it can be taught to walk differently. Cersei's mouth tightened. What of me? She asked. Where do I sit in your brave new circle? Tyrion opened his mouth. Brienne's hand tightened on her sword. Daenerys spoke first. You don't, she said. Not in this room. Your hands are far too bloody. Your name, too heavy. But you will not go to the headsman either. Not today. Now. Cersei's chin lifted. Mercy then, from the girl who crucified masters and burned khals? Justice, Daenerys said. Of a sort. You will go back to Casterly Rock. You will rule there as long as your people suffer you. You will send men when the table asks. You will not march your banners without its consent. You will live long enough to see a world you do not control. Cersei's eyes burned. You condemn me to boredom. I condemn you to witness, Daenerys said. Slowly, terribly. Cersei smiled. You're merciful, she said. That will either save you or destroy you. She turned away from the molten metal, the table, the chairs. She walked out of the throne room with her back straight, Brienne at her shoulder, as if she had just won something. Perhaps she had. Rhaegar watched her go. Will it hold? Jon asked him quietly, when the hall had emptied, when only the crackle of cooling metal and the creak of settling wood remained. This? Rhaegar gestured to the table, the chairs. For a time. Nothing holds forever. No. Then what's the point? Jon asked, tired beyond words. The point, Rhaegar said, is that when it breaks, there will be more than one voice to argue over how to mend it. That the next fool who thinks himself a savior will find 3 other fools telling him to sit down before he ruins everything. Jon snorted. You speak from experience. Oh yes, Rhaegar said. And that's how it happened. Rhaegar told the girl on his knee, fingers idly forming chords. More or less, with fewer arguments and more paperwork than you'd like, I suspect. She frowned. That's not the end. It can't be. What about Jon, and grandmother, and Aegon, and Aunt Sansa? You can't just melt a chair and stop. Life doesn't stop, Rhaegar said. Stories do. That's the trouble with them. She folded her arms. I want more. He smiled. Greedy. Good. That's how we get better tales. She wriggled, settling herself. What did Jon do? He tried to disappear, Rhaegar said. Back to the wall. Back to shadows. Men like him always do. The world had other ideas. He let the harp pull him back, notes bridging years. Jon Snow stood in the rebuilt courtyard of the Night Fort, watching men raise new walls of black stone and cold iron. The great maw of the Black Gate below had been sealed with spells and masonry. The old tunnels were blocked. We'll never rebuild it as high, Ed said, standing beside him. Not in our lifetime. It doesn't need to be as high, Jon said. Just remembered. You mean to stay? Ed asked. We could use a Lord Commander who's actually died once. Adds gravitas. Jon shook his head. No, not for good. The Watch isn't my life anymore. Not only. Sansa needs someone to sit the northern chair at that table. Someone who knows what this place means. Die? You're talking about spending half your time with southern lords arguing taxes, Edie said. You sure the dead weren't the better option? Jon almost smiled. You can take my place when I don't come, Ed snorted. I'd rather fight ice demons. Jon watched a group of wildling children chasing each other across the yard, snow squeaking under their boots. One of them, freckled, hair a riot of red curls, turned and waved at him, gap-toothed grin wide. Daenerys wants to see this, he said quietly. All of it. The Watch changed, the free folk coming and going. The wall is a road instead of a prison. Bring her, Eddie said. She has duties, Jon said. Councils, dragons, freedmen. 100 cities across the sea writing her letters. Sounds dull, Ed said. You Northmen always did have odd tastes. Jon huffed a laugh. She's less dull than she sounds. He thought of her at the table, arguing with Marjorie over grain levies, with Rhaenys over trade routes, with Yara over pirates. He thought of her with Drogon on the tower, staring south, restless. He thought of her in the quiet hours, hair unbound, eyes shadowed. We ask a lot of her, he said. We ask a lot of you, Edie replied. That's what happens when you keep surviving. Jon looked north. The sky was clear. No aurora now. No blue eyes in the dark. Only snow. Only wind. He turned south. Daenerys learned painfully to sit at the table she had made. It was not easy. She had thought burning a throne would be the hard part. It turned out setting tariffs nearly broke her. Men who had been bold on battlefields became petty and stubborn over tolls on the Roserat. Women who had faced down giants quailed before ledgers. You can't just tell them what to do, Tyrion said one night, pouring wine as they looked over a stack of petitions. Not anymore. I never could, she said. I only thought I could. He tilted his head. You're not as mad as your critics hoped. Give me time, she replied. She learned which lords could be trusted to keep their word and which needed ink and witnesses. She learned the subtle art of concession. Sometimes she stormed from the chamber, hair crackling, and flew Drogon hard and far, returning only when the anger had cooled. She made mistakes. In Astapor, a freedman council descended into bloody factions. She had to send ships and soldiers to steady it. In Meereen, some of the old masters slipped back into power under new names. It took her too long to see it. In the Reach, a harvest failed. She nearly triggered a famine with a well-meaning levy. She apologized, more often than she liked. She listened, more often than she expected. She changed her mind occasionally. "You're not the same girl who walked into the fire for 3 stones," Jorah said quietly, once leaning on his stick in a sunlit garden. "I'm still walking into fire," she said. "They just look different now." He smiled, then coughed, the illness that would carry him off already gnawing. "I'm glad I lived long enough to see it," he said. Aegon struggled. He had been raised on a story that he was the rightful king, the prince that was promised, the savior of the realm from bad governance if not from ice demons. To find himself one voice among 12 at a table made of wood, not one arse among one, on a chair of swords, chafed. "You should have it," he said to Rhaegar once, in the quiet of a dawn balcony overlooking the city. "The dragon chair, the leading voice. It was always meant to be yours." "I forfeited that when I let the realm burn without me," Rhaegar said. "You're the one who lived its consequences." Aegon's jaw clenched. "I lived them in exile. And that taught you things no prince in the Red Keep ever knew," Rhaegar said. "Hunger, disguise, dependence on people who didn't owe you anything. Those lessons matter here." He gestured toward the waking city. "They'll matter more when my songs are dust and your grandchildren are arguing over poor duties." "You expect this to last that long?" Aegon asked. "I expect it to fail," Rhaegar said. "But I hope every failure is smaller than the ones that came before." Rhaenys adapted faster. She traded her spear for ledgers, her dragon dreams for ship manifests. She rode between Dorne and the capital, ferrying messages and grain and stubborn traditions. She sat at the table and interrupted men twice her age with questions they couldn't ignore. When she wasn't doing that, she sparred with Arya in hidden courtyards, both laughing as they tried to trip each other. "You ever won a throne?" Arya asked once, wiping sweat from her brow, needle in hand. "Gods, no," Rhaenys said. "I've seen what they do. Besides, I like moving too much." "Good," Arya said. "You'd be terrible at sitting still." They grinned at each other. Sansa ruled the north. She did not sit at the table all the time. Winters were too harsh, roads too treacherous for regular travel. Instead, she sent letters, ravens fluttering south with crisp, tidy writing. When she did come, once or twice a year, she brought the cold with her. "The North remembers," she would say when some Reach Lord tried to slip old Southern games back onto the board. "We remember what it was, and we prefer what it is now. Don't make us choose between them." She married eventually, not to cement alliances. Those were built at the table. But because she found a man who did not flinch from her scars. They had children. Stark blood continued, mixed now with something new. When Jon visited, he found her in the Godswood more often than in the hall, talking to the tree as if it were an old friend. "It's quieter now," she said once. "Hand on the heart tree's bark, but never silent. I think that's the best we can hope for." And Jon, he never sat the dragon chair, the girl on Rhaegar's knee said, indignant. "Not once." "Once," Rhaegar said. "For a day." He remembered it clearly. Daenerys had been away, called to deal with a crisis in Volantis, where a Red Temple had decided her divinity was an excuse to ignore local laws. Aegon had ridden north to break up a border dispute between the Vale and the Riverlands. Rhaenys was in Dorne, Sansa in Winterfell. The table in King's Landing stood half empty. "You've been avoiding this," Tyrion told Jon, shoving a stack of petitions at him. "Consider it your punishment." "For what?" Jon asked. "For being right too often," Tyrion said. Jon sat. He listened as small folk pleaded cases of land theft and bridge tolls, as merchants argued over tariffs, as knights begged for recognition, as a woman whose husband had been killed by Lannister men years ago asked quietly for her son's name to be cleared. He gave what judgments he could, deferred others, admitted ignorance more times than he liked. At sunset, he stood and felt older than he had after any battle. "Never again," he said. "You did well," Tyrion said. "I hated it," Jon replied. "Then you're exactly the sort of man I want in that chair," Tyrion said. He did sit it again occasionally when storms or wars or illness pulled others away. He never grew to like it. That, Rhaegar thought, was what made him good at it. He spent more and more time north as the years went by, riding the length of the old wall, visiting free folk villages, watching children of wildlings and kneelers play together in the snow. When he died, quietly in his bed, ghost's head in his lap, hair gone white. Men said the wind howled differently along the wall for a week. And grandmother, the girl asked, what happened to her? You never say. Rhaegar hesitated. She burned, he said, as she always was going to. But this time, it was not like Aerys. It was a choice she made with her eyes open. He told the girl of a revolt in Meereen years after Daenerys had last walked its streets. Of old masters who had waited, bided their time, whispered in freedmen's ears about how things had been better before. Of a fire that swept through the lower city, set not by dragons but by men with torches. She flew there, he said, old as she was. Drogon older still. She walked through the streets she'd broken and remade and broken again. She listened to men who had never seen her but blamed her for everything wrong in their lives, and everything wrong before they were born. May. And, the girl whispered, and she lit one last fire, he said. Not on a city, on a fleet, on a slaver's harbor, on the last great market that still traded in human flesh under another name. He looked out the window, seeing it. It killed her. The smoke, the strain, the years. But the chain broke there on that shore, for longer than any of us had managed before. Was it worth it? The girl asked. Rhaegar thought of Daenerys' face in those last days. Lined, fierce, tired, always tired. Of the way she had laughed when she saw children in King's Landing playing at dragon riders with sticks and stones instead of swords. She thought so, he said. That's what matters. The girl leaned her head against his chest, absorbing that. And you? She asked. What happened to you? He smiled. I grew old and told stories, he said. I think I got the better bargain. Did you? Her tone was skeptical. You always sound sad. Songs are sad, he said. They don't have to be, she retorted. You could write happier ones. He laughed, genuinely. You do it then. I will, she said. And I'll make them about everyone. Not just one prince who thought he was important. Good, he said softly. Better. She slid off his lap, standing on the bench. I'm going to see the dragon, she announced. He gets lonely when you talk too much. He, Rhaegar echoed. How do you know he's a he? He told me, she said over her shoulder. In my dreams. She ran off, hair bouncing, little boots thudding on the stone. Rhaegar watched her go, the ache in his chest a familiar, oddly welcome thing. He lifted the harp again. Outside, the city hummed. Dragons wheeled lazily over the bay. On the tower, a white wolf dozed. In the tomorrow, he would not see. Councils would bicker and compromise. Walls would be mended and broken. New songs would be written. Old ones forgotten. In the deep north, where snow met sea, something vast and slow-breathing turned over and went back to sleep. Satisfied that, for now, the stories were being told properly. Rhaegar's fingers found the old melody and changed it, just a little, adding notes he had never thought to before. A fourth voice, a fifth, a discord that resolved not into triumph or despair, but into something stubbornly human. Every Targaryen who had been meant to shape history had lived long enough to try. Some had burned, some had frozen, some had broken, some had bent. All of them had, at one time or another, stood at a crossroads and chosen a path that was not the one written for them. The realm they left was imperfect, fragile, prone to backsliding and folly and small cruelties. It was, at last, theirs. Rhaegar Targaryen played on, the song spilling out through the open windows, over the city, over the fields, over the old scars of war. Somewhere in the yard, a child laughed as a dragon lowered its head to her outstretched hand. This time, he did not chase the ending. He let the story go where it would.